Make sure I hit that mute button on YouTube.
Hi there, this is S.J. Thomason with Christian-Apologist.com, and I am joined by a big group of people. And so I'm really excited. We're going to have a free-for-all today, if you can believe that. We've got people who are coming from different walks of life, even different countries in this group. So we've got Michael, who's the Canadian atheist, coming in. We have t.fysh, who's coming in from England, I think you said, Tim. Did you say that? We also have Nathan, and we have David, and we have Pleasure of Doubt. And so you can probably tell by a couple of their names what their positions are, but we're joined by people who represent Christianity, atheism, and igtheism. This belief that I'm not sure everyone knows about. So if you don't, we're going to have Tim speak to what that is. So without further ado, I think let's just go around and introduce ourselves. Maybe start with Michael, since Michael, I think, was the first, and then go to Tim, then Pleasure of Doubt, David, and Nathan. So we'll just go like that.
Sure. Hi, well, my name is Michael. Yes, I'm an atheist. I will just correct you on one thing, SJ. I'm not speaking for anybody but myself as far as atheism goes. I think my opinion's enough just for me. But yeah, I do a little podcast called The Canadian Atheist, and it's fun. You can find it on pretty much any podcast catcher. And we talk about some of the silly things that believers of all stripes do and say, and try to have some fun doing it. That's about it.
Excellent. And I want to, before I forget, I'm going to make sure that I put links in the description to all of you, if there's ways to link to you. I know Nathan's got a YouTube channel. Any of you, if you have YouTube channels, Twitter, anything else, I know that I've reached some of you in some different ways. So I'll be sure to do that for the audience if they'd like to contact you guys. So let's go to Tim. Oh, wait, I can't hear Tim.
You're muted.
Shoot, I think I closed it out.
I've muted myself. Is that better? Right. My name's Tim. I'm 72. I'm a lifelong non-believer. I've never, ever believed in religious things. I have come to take up the position of being an atheist, which is someone, the other way to call it is a theological non-cognitivist. Excuse my language, which means that I have never heard or been given a definition of God which is comprehensible. You can tell me about a unicorn which doesn't exist, and I can comprehend what a unicorn is. But if you, what's a Trinitarian God? What's a timeless God? What does that mean? And I think that's that's my position theologically, and it is my position. I don't speak I don't speak for anybody else. Okay.
Hey, good, excellent, thank you. Now let's go to Pleasure of Doubt.
Hey, my name is Pleasure of Doubt, or you can call me Pod, or my name's Brett. Any will do. I'm relatively new to YouTube. I've been podcasting with writer John Buck on the Vekl lecture series, and recently that's on the Bevry YouTube channel. I've recently started my own channel. I only have a few videos up right now, a couple discussions on free will, but my channel will focus on topics like this: religion, politics, philosophy. I also have a big theme of trying to bring, trying to get past the us versus them divide. So these tribal biases we have, I think often we have much more in common than we have differences, but the languages we talk, the grammar we use sort of hides that. And it can, we have these inherent biases to distrust the other side, anyone we see as other, and have an affinity towards anyone who we see as in our in-group. And that these biases sort of destroy, all the dumpster fires you see online, I think a large part geared towards these biases. So I've been trying on my own, and now trying to branch out, of figuring out ways to have productive discussions on the internet to control for our biases. I don't think we can get rid of these biases. I think they're built in, but I think we can provide take measures to help overcome them. One of them being conversations like this, where people of different sides talk to each other in good faith. It's a lot easier to spot the biases in the other side than it is to spot your own, and so we can help each other work through these problems. So my YouTube channel is Pleasure of Doubt, and my same with my Twitter.
Great. Well, thank you. And I agree with you on the biases idea. I want to just piggyback on that for a second. We all have our preconceived biases, and it's human nature a lot of times to look for cognitive shortcuts when we meet people. And so one of the things that I think it's always good to do, just like you mentioned, one of the ways that people go away from being racist, for example, or having these stereotypes towards other people is by getting to know other people, and to, like what you're saying. So when you don't know people, there's a fear of the unknown. So you attach these labels and stereotypes, and it's pretty dangerous, as I think you're mentioning.
That's exactly a big part of what I think is sort of my big hypothesis, is that when you really try to understand the other side and actually take steps to understand them, you start to see them a little more like us, which reduces the cognitive bias against them, increases the affinity towards them, and it doesn't mean you agree with each other, but it means you can work together, you can talk together, you can share together, and you don't have to hate each other.
Yeah, that's fair. David?
Hey, good morning, good evening, or wherever you're at. David McGuire. Good to be with you all. Yes, I am a believer. You can call me a Christian. You can call me a Jewish believer in Jesus, or whatever floats your boat. I've been a believer since the age of 14, since Jesus saved me in actually one of the worst times in my life. My parents, actually, I won't tell you the personal reason why, divorced when I was 13, and I was separated from my family, and I was put in a troubled home for boys. And a man named Jeff Boschka invited me to a Bible study. It didn't take the first time, it took a few times, but actually, I was in a very abusive situation. My dad was actually a pretty bad guy, and he never apologized for anything he did. So that was pretty bad. But through the power of Jesus, I was saved, and I did forgive my dad. And eventually I preached the gospel to him for his whole life. And on his deathbed, I brought the gospel to him, and he accepted Jesus on his deathbed. And then I spent 20 years in the Army, went to Iraq 3 times. So that's just who I am. That's part of who I am, is that attitude. The soldier attitude. I shoot straight. I tell it like it is, but I tell it in love. Look, no matter who you are, atheist, agnostic, or whatever you believe, you could be a Satanist, whatever. You know what? I still love you, honestly. I'm just going to tell you like it is, though. But I tell it in love, and I love you, and that's my thing. Is I love everybody, because you know what? Jesus loved everybody, even if he called them snakes and vipers, and everything he did out of a place of love. So everything I do is I do it out of a place of love, and that's the main point I want to try to get across, and that's why I love good dialogue. I'm not a debater, so let me just get that point across. That's not my main shtick. My main shtick is to get if you want to call it that, is Jesus and God. And I do not. So let me just please get this across. I don't get into deep theological debates about the Bible with somebody who doesn't know the Bible or who doesn't accept God, because to me that's pointless. But we can get into that later on. But God bless you all, and I thank you all for willing to be here. And that says a lot about your character, and I appreciate all of you. So thank you.
That's okay. Now, Nathan, I want to say Nathan's girlfriend. Thank you, David. That's a very heartfelt and sincere message, and I really appreciate that. I just saw some stuff in the chat, so I wanted to. Nathan, you're supposed to be celebrating Vera's birthday with her today instead of being on the show.
She's in Spain, so.
Oh, that's right. That's right. So happy birthday, Vera, if you happen to join. So let's go to Nathan now. And we've got 2 people here who are from the England area, so that's pretty great.
Yeah, sure. So my kind of story and positions, I suppose, would be that I think I don't think I ever really knew when I was younger. In school and stuff, there's a sort of vague Christian cultural background. So I suppose Christianity was kind of my default. And then as the kind of as I was growing up, I suppose throughout my teenage years, I became an atheist with all the Four Horsemen stuff going on. Then I became open to there being more than the natural world through like psychedelic experiences and stuff as I was kind of growing up. And I eventually, around 2 years ago, ended up becoming a Christian. Then recently, however, I've decided to kind of back down from that position. I've become agnostic again. And I'd say that my position is to do with what we're kind of warranted in claiming that we know. So I'm not like a naturalist. I'm not exactly an anti-theist, but I think that if I were to say that I know God exists, then I'd be claiming something that I didn't have any warrant in saying, or I can't know. So that's kind of my current position and where I'm coming from. But I really enjoy theology and philosophy and good discussion about all these things.
Great. Well, thank you. That's also a interesting story. So we've got a lot of very different perspectives here, and we should be joined by a couple more people that haven't come in here yet. But we do have a couple of more Christians who are supposed to come in here and sort of balance this out a little bit. So right now we're somewhat lopsided, but that's all just fine. It sounds like a very pleasant crowd that we're with today. I'm trying to switch my screen here as I'm talking. So let's go to I could ask a question of all of you, or if you guys want to just start talking to each other, but we now know how everyone has come to their beliefs. But what I wanted to probably talk about a little bit is how firm you are. If actually one of the things that Nathan has done on my channel a couple of times is street epistemology. And so I figured I'd flip the script and ask a question for you guys to answer. And the question is, I want to know your confidence level between 0 and 100% that, and I'm just going to read a few things, that life has no purpose and meaning, DNA code has no coder, universe began out of nothing, Jesus did not resurrect, and we have no source of our objective morality. So I'm wondering if you have a confidence level on that. And then David, since you're the only Christian in here besides me, maybe you could say your confidence level that all of those are true.
Okay, well, I'm trying to remember all of those. But I have a 100% confidence level and all of that. I'm not a DNA, I'm not a science guy, so I've been trying to remember the DNA part, but I've seen actually something interesting on that, and I can't remember the science behind that. I actually posted something on Twitter about that, but I'll leave the science up to you. And I can't remember that cross thingy in our DNA that it's like the rebar of our DNA, but that's an interesting thing. I'll leave that up to you to discuss because I'm not a science guy. I can't remember all of that, but I'm a 100% confidence in that. I've been walking in this besides one part of my life when I actually willingly by choice walked away, but then came back.
Okay. All
right. First, let me say that even if without signs or wonders, just through reading the word myself, that I have a 100% confidence level, but also because of experiences as well. So I just want to say, without the experiences, not just based on experiences, I have 100% confidence level, but also because I have experienced the truth of that word in my life, that I have a 100% confidence level. I have seen the promises come true in my life. Just even the point of that troubles had, look, I've experienced lots of troubles in my life.
Okay. Well, let's
Um,
go, David, to because I want to make sure that everyone gets some fair time to
Sorry,
speak
sorry,
a little
SJ.
bit.
Before you go on to the next, can you just repeat your list? You went pretty fast. I wanted to make
right.
sure.
No, I
Okay,
can't
and you could
remember
just
myself.
That's true. Okay, so and you could maybe just even pick one of these if you don't want to say all of them. So think about your confidence level for any one or all of these ideas. So one idea is life has no purpose and meaning. DNA code has no coder. The universe began out of nothing. Jesus did not resurrect, or that we have no source of our objective morality that's transcendent to us. And John Lloyd, thank you for the $2 Canadian. Does anyone here think that Adam and Eve is logical? That's another question. We'll get to that. That's actually a good question. So, so let's first go and see if any of you guys want to answer some confidence levels.
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in. Pardon me. A couple of these I think are pretty tricky as far as the purpose of life. I'm not even sure that that's a good question to ask and to apply a confidence level to it. I think we give our own lives meaning. But if I say that, then I'd say, yeah, I'm 100% confident that I give my own life meaning. The DNA has no coder. Universe began from nothing, and transcendent all beg the question. But I would say that we don't have any good reason to think that. But I'm just to be a contrarian, I'm going to say 100% right down the board, and maybe Dave and I can lock horns a little bit. Because yeah, I'm reasonably confident that that's the case. And just to address one thing just quickly that I think it's David, that you said, McGuire. You talked about some of your personal experiences and stuff like that. And I don't deny that you had experiences, and they may be really, really good experiences for you. And I think to anyone that has an experience, that personal experience is the best possible evidence that anyone can have. And to everybody else, it's the worst, because it's just your experience. And the fact that you said you've seen things happen in your life. And I remember reading some of Julia Sweeney's book, Letting Go of God. And she was talking about coincidences, and she's like, at one point she said, "Oh my God, there's coincidences." And so I would maybe just suggest that you look at the possibility that instead of, oh, well, it was a God that did this thing, that maybe sometimes things just happen.
Sure. I can talk about some of his experiences that are quantifiable.
Yeah, let's go back. Actually, let's definitely do that. But let's go around first and have everyone answer that, and then we'll come back, because I know, David, you did have some miracles in your life that I think I would consider miracles. So we're going to come back to that. So everybody in the chat, please stay tuned for that in a little bit.
Shall I go next?
Yes.
Right. I agree with Michael about the question about the purpose of life. I think that's not a question about confidence. We all give ourselves purpose. Whether it's justified or not is the question. DNA thing, I'm a strong believer in evolution. Evolution, to my mind, is a fact. The methods may be in dispute, methods of evolution may be in dispute, but I think it is recognized that evolution is a fact. I don't think there's any particular coda behind it. Morality, I don't see morality as transcendent. I see it. I could argue that it's objective, but I think it is more linked to our evolutionary background and our cultural evolution. About Jesus, I doubt that he was resurrected, but I suspect he was a very charismatic man who had followers or disciples who did worship him, And I think I agree with Ormond. I think the idea of Jesus calling himself God, I don't think he would have done that. I think he had more humility and he was more humble than that. That's what I read from my remembering of Christian teaching. That it would be arrogant of the man to claim his divinity. But I think he's in a sense, it's a bit like Buddha. See, Buddha, some people claim that Buddha claimed to be God. Other people say, no, Buddha did never claim to be God. And I think the same thing is with Jesus. What was the other one?
Okay. Well, I think you've pretty much addressed him, except for, I don't remember if you said something on DNA.
I think
The
it was
DNA
universe.
is the evolution.
Okay,
It's strong, but I don't think it's a coder as such. I think
Okay,
the idea
so
of
you think
calling it
that-
a code is
Would it-
ridiculous.
Would it be fair to say that that you're saying that you believe that the idea of evolution and God are mutually exclusive?
No.
Okay, that's fair, because I know there are a lot of people who support evolution in the form that I think you're referencing from the Christian camp. So I just wanted to mention that.
Yeah.
I think it was the universe began out of nothing as well. Was that?
Oh, the universe gets there. We don't know. I don't know. I think we don't know yet. Okay.
Okay, that's fair enough. And actually, you mentioned something. Each of you has mentioned some things. I am taking vicious notes because I'm going to come back to a lot of these points that you're making.
We're going to be hung, drawn, and quartered with them.
I've got the, see, like, look at my little scratch notes. I've already taken this much.
I guess
All right.
I can jump in. So life has no purpose and meaning. I mean, first, I think meaning and purpose comes from being conscious and having a sufficient type of intelligence. So humans are beings that are conscious and have that kind of intelligence. We are meaningful creatures. So whenever I hear someone say, non-believers think there's no meaning in life, I think, well, no, life is full of meaning. We're full of meaning-making creatures. Do I believe that there's some, meta meaning that the universe has? That I'm not convinced of. So I have pretty low confidence in that. Do I? I don't think I said it in my intro, but I'm probably technically an agnostic or a soft atheist. I think I take the position there's insufficient reliable evidence that either a deity exists or that no deities exist. But I'd probably lean closer to the non-believer range, but I like to think I'm open. DNA, code or no code. I think DNA is consistent with there being a coder, but from everything I know about DNA, I don't think it's required. I remember being stuck for a while on, this error correcting mechanism in DNA. So I tried to find, I'm a layperson. I don't have a scientific background. I'm sort of any science I have, I'm interested now. I wasn't when I was younger, which I regret. But so I struggled through scientific text, but I found something that had a pretty good layperson's explanation of how this error correction takes place. And what I saw is it's all very physically based. It's not a cognitive type process. It's the shape, it's the position, the size of the molecules that resulted in this error correction. So we sort of think of DNA, we use these cognitive type terms, but I think from everything that I know of DNA, it's consistent with it doesn't require an intelligent designer, so to speak. Objective morality, again, I'm not convinced that there's any transcendent sort of, if we mean sort of a being, deity type person, being that provides morality. I am a proponent of somewhat objective morality. I think it comes from, again, being conscious, intelligent sort of agents with the ability to make decisions and think about what's going to happen. I think we can use reason. I think even maybe a while back, SJ, I think I may have even given you briefly my version of objective morality, which is, I can just say it really quickly. I mean, it's a longer discussion, but that we all have, at least as humans, we have the drive to survive, thrive, and be happy / eudaimonia, well-being. We also are not self-sufficient. We have to live and work together. So through that basis, I think we can build objective morality, including the golden rule. I think all of that comes out of it. Universe began out of nothing. I think regardless of our worldview, we have to accept that something did not begin to exist. Something has always existed. Something didn't have a start. I think that the stuff that made the universe is an option, a deity is an option, or something else. But I think we can't escape that something just is as a brute fact of reality. If there's a God, that God exists as a brute fact of reality. There's no reason for that God to exist. If it's the universe or some proto-universe, something that produces our universe, something has to just exist without any reason. And Jesus' resurrection, I would say I don't think there's sufficient reliable evidence that Jesus resurrected. I think there is, I'm willing to go with the consensus that there's sufficient reliable evidence that he existed.
Okay, that's fair enough. So you go on the evidence-based view. You don't feel like there's evidence. So I guess you would say that you're 100% confident that he didn't resurrect.
No, I first of all, there's a very small number of things that I'm 100% confident of. I mean, the sort of the Descartesian cogito ergo sum. I think, therefore, I am. I must exist. I am conscious. I know consciousness exists. There are very few things I would say I'm 100% confident of outside of that. That being said, there's a lot of things I'm very, very confident of. As close as you can get. I mean, I can't prove you all exist to 100% confidence, but I'm 99.99999% confident that you exist. I'm not a solipsist or anything like that, but I do try to take a skeptical approach, which is to always be open to the fact that I'm wrong. And I think most things we can't assign that high a belief. Now, I think the reliable evidence, meaning evidence that has a low chance of error / bias for Jesus being resurrected, I think the evidence is relatively low from everything that I've seen. And so I hate putting numbers to these things. I don't know how you actually put a number, but I would say I have fairly low confidence that he resurrected.
Okay. Let's go to Nathan.
Yeah, sure. So on purpose and meaning, is it objective purpose or meaning? The question.
I'd say it's do we have an objective? I'd say that we have a purpose and meaning that's a transcendent purpose and meaning, a spiritual sense to fulfill a mission.
So I'd say I'm not certain that there is. I'm probably about like 30% confident that there is on that one. That DNA has a coda, about 10%. That the universe began out of nothing around, maybe like positively asserting that claim, very low confidence. Like I don't even know really what nothing is or how it behaves at all, or much beyond a tiny amount of kind of like cosmology and basic classical physics and stuff. That Jesus rose from the dead, I'd say I'd be about maybe 1 or 2% confident. I'm not even sure if that's possible. I don't think the evidence is good enough. And the falsehood of the evidence is way more likely than that happened, I'd say, from what I know, but I'm open to revising that. And then that we have a transcendent source of morality. I am a moral realist. I'm a non-natural moral realist. So, I'm about 70-80% confident that that's correct, but again, open to revising.
Okay, fair enough. So you've given confidence levels in a number of different things. I want to go to a question that was in here in the chat from John Lloyd. He's wondering about Adam and Eve and what everyone's perspectives are on Adam and Eve, or basically just being the first two humans. How does that work out? And I know that there's 4 people in here who don't believe in Christianity. So asking your perspectives on Adam and Eve might seem kind of silly, but maybe you have thoughts on Adam and Eve, and maybe we'll start with David, since he probably for sure has thoughts.
Oh, my thoughts. Well, I've actually just we have a Bible. We have a written record in the Bible. And the funny thing about the Bible is that, people look at it as one book. However, it is not one book. It is actually a collection of books written in different languages over thousands of years. So let's get that out of the way first. So let's just destroy all misconceptions of the Bible. So I've actually, because we don't actually have one lineage, so I've actually traced the lineage. Just, anybody can do it. It's not hard to do. The lineage of Jesus, for instance, goes all the way back to who? Adam and Eve. So either it's a complete fabrication. So let's look at the Bible. So the Bible is, for instance, like a perfectly written book written by different men who never knew each other over a period of thousands of years, yet perfect in every single way that doesn't contradict one another. So let's look at Adam and Eve in that instance. Like I said, you can trace Jesus' lineage all the way back to Adam and Eve. So I mean, look, like I said, I'm not a science guy. You can look up, everybody has a, different thing, old Earth, new Earth. I don't really care about that. You can look up Dr. Hugh Ross, what he has to say about that. He's one of my favorite guys. But hey, that's what I have to say. Why my confidence that Adam and Eve did really exist, because we have the lineage, and before the destruction of the Second Temple, look, Jewish people were kept perfect lineage records of lineage perfectly. So my confidence level that Adam and Eve did exist is 100%. I have no doubt of it. So there you go.
Okay. Well, I want to say John Lloyd just also did a super chat. He's wondering about, can we add on to this conversation about the human rib? Can it regrow? He says. A human rib. So God is said to have taken a rib from Adam to make Eve. Do you believe that might be metaphorical, or do you think that could be literal?
Well, according to the Hebrew, it is literal. But I won't get into what the Hebrew says about that. And actually, I don't know about that regrowth. I mean, regrow, it was taken. It's science that a man has less of a rib. So, and I see some guy doesn't believe in actual evolution in the chat. No, I don't believe in macroevolution. There's no science to back up macroevolution. Do I believe in microevolution? Yes, I believe in microevolution, but no, I don't believe that you can take one species can leap into another whole other species. No, there's no science to back that up. Never has been. That's complete theory. So there you go. No, I don't believe. I'm seeing some guy here. Sorry, I'm seeing some guy in the chat ask that question. So no,
Okay.
I believe in microevolution. There's science to back up microevolution. But macroevolution, there's no science to back it up.
Okay, so I don't know if anyone, actually, I want to point out something. My beliefs on Adam and Eve, I believe, just as the other Christian here, I believe that Adam and Eve could be literal or they could be metaphorical. This particular issue for me isn't the make it or break it. I think the reason I follow Christianity is because I follow Jesus. And so he is the center of my attention, not the book of Genesis so much, although Genesis and all of the other books of the Old Testament did point to the New Testament. And just to back what you're saying, so we have over 40 authors, over 1,500 years, 3 continents, 3 languages. We're able to somehow coherently put together a 66 book volume, and some Catholic versions have more, but it's pretty amazing in itself. But actually, maybe we can go to, do any of you want to offer any support for evolution, since that's kind of related to the Adam and Eve thing, and since Prophet David just said something about evolution?
Can I say that I think the best kind of pathway that people can go with in terms of looking at Genesis is actually the kind of Michael Heizer and John Walton view. So reading it through the lens of the cultures at the time, they aren't thinking in a materialistic paradigm like we are. When we think about how the world's created, we're thinking very much materially. Whereas what John Walton talks about, and he looks at all these other texts, for example, like the story of Marduk and Tiamat and other surrounding cultures. And what he's saying there is that what's going on in Genesis is functional ontology rather than material ontology. So when it's saying that God made in our English language, the Hebrew word bara, I think, is like it's not like made in a created sense. So the days of creation and God making these things is to do with the function that they're being afforded in God's cosmic temple. And a scholar called Michael Heizer also argues that a better translation of the first sentence is something like when the beginning, or when the beginning began. He does this from like incomplete clauses, and also I think the Masoretic text has like a vowel symbol, because the vowels weren't added to the Hebrew language until like 800, but the translation of that in the modern thing, when they put the vowels in, it has a certain version which would insinuate that that a better translation is like when the beginning. So and even if you were to say it's creation ex nihilo, I kind of don't get that, because it's like God's face hovered over the waters of the deep. So that seems kind of contradictory. So I think the Christian can accept a pre-existing material universe, possibly other people, possibly evolution, or they might not accept these things. But I think Genesis is agnostic on that. And the point is that when God goes about creating the world in the story of Genesis, it's about how these things serve a role in God's cosmic temple in relation to where man is. And that also resolves saying like, Adam came from dust, but it's God yet sard man, dust of the earth. That's not to do with like physical creation again. It's to do with God saying that that's what man is in like a metaphorical sense. It's not literal language. That's my take.
Okay, and I want to say two things that you just mentioned. Michael Heizer, I've read two of his books and they were excellent. One's called Unseen Realm and the other one's called Angels. He does a really good detailed research studies on those. And then going back to what Prophet David said with Hugh Ross, I've read probably 6 of Hugh Ross's books. He's got a whole bunch of books on Genesis, and he looks at from the perspective of a cosmologist, essentially. He's an astrophysicist, and so he looks at the formation of the world through the lens of what a person with his kind of knowledge would have, and how the world formed. And he just basically says, like, for example, when people talk about the sun and the moons and the stars and that kind of thing, and they think that that's in contradiction to what's in Genesis. But he talks about when the earth was formed, first it was initially completely cloud covered. So the perspective of the person on the earth would be to not be able to see the sun until day 4. And so that's kind of an interesting thing that's in there that Hugh has really well developed.
Yeah, he has just if Nathan wants to look up, he has like it's an older video, but it's like an hour, 2-hour talk where he goes behind the science, why God created everything in a certain step period and how long it took. And anyway, it's if you want to look it up, it's out there about it. And Dr. Hugh Ross goes behind why and everything. So just putting it out there.
Okay. So I wanted to go back to some of the things that everyone brought up. We have a lot of different people with different opinions in here. And so I'm trying to figure out which one would be the most interesting to get into.
Can I just say something about evolution? You obviously got some questions about evolution. We're none of us, unless I'm wrong, none of us are biologists. Are we?
I'm not.
No. I think starting to talk about evolution can end up people grabbing a position which they're not an expert on, and it can end up in a dumpster fire.
I agree.
So can we avoid the evolution?
Sure, once we all accept that it's an absolute fact.
Yeah, I'm sure the chat will say something different, but you can.
Doesn't
matter what people believe; it's a demonstrable fact.
Well, I think actually, it's, I want to point out something. I think I had a Jonathan McClatchy on my channel a few days ago, and he's a biologist. He's got a PhD. He's an assistant professor up in Boston, and he's got a really interesting take on evolution. So I highly recommend listening to what he has to say about that, because he actually said that the more he discovers about our bodies and everything, like the more support he thinks there is for God. And so the more he looks into the cell structures and all that kind of stuff, the more support he's found for God. So very interesting conversation.
Hey,
it could be really interesting. And the reality is Don't tell YouTube about your findings. Get them to submit it for peer review, because there's a Nobel Prize for anyone who can take down Darwin's theory.
Oh, he's not trying to take it down. He's just saying that looking at this sort of thing gives him information about God. But I want to say, John Lloyd, I want to say thank you to John Lloyd for the super chat. He says, Happy New Year. I hope you all have a great year. Thank you, SJ. Everyone here, please check out a movie by Living Waters, Noah, or the documentary, The Principle, that shows Earth is the center of the universe. Oh, wow. Earth is the center of the universe. Hey, wait, is Living Waters, isn't that Ray Comfort?
That's Ray Comfort and Crocoduck, King Crocoduck.
Well,
Cameron.
hey, look, when it comes to science, that's why I just point to the scientists. So, because I am not a science guy. But hey, when you talk about the next subject, I thought we were going to get to, memory. Whew. I think Michael wanted to say he wanted to lock horns with me about something. If you want to go to that.
Well, just one more point on the Adam and Eve. I think there's another approach that we can take to these stories, that the Adam and Eve tale wasn't meant to be history, that it's mythology, that it's a community discovering itself, defining itself, describing itself, learning how to identifying patterns in the world and codifying them and passing on these messages. I think this is the approach. Dr. Christine Hayes has a Yale history of the Old Testament. It's available on YouTube. I think that's the position she's taken, that they didn't mean it. The authors of the Old Testament at that time didn't mean it as literal history. They were it's a myth, which is different than fiction. I mean, there's truth to myths, and so there are truths in the Old Testament, but they're not necessarily historical truths in that sense. I mean, there are some historical truths too, but I mean, in terms of, say, the Adam and Eve story, Cain and Abel, these are stories about a people more than a story about literally what happened.
Dave,
so there are different perspectives on that. I would say, actually, what I'm doing right now, just kind of related to that, is I'm doing a deep dive into the book of Daniel, because I think that there's a lot of scholarship that's out there today that has basically gone from what somebody in this 3rd century AD came up with, porphyry, and it was ignored for many centuries, and the Germans resurrected it. And this idea of Daniel has this late dating because these people want to get away from the supernatural implications of all of the prophecies that were coming true from Daniel. So anyway, I'm doing a deep dive into that, and I've seen a lot of these. I've seen a lot of different academic articles right now that have built upon each other with these premises. So once somebody comes up and says, okay, it's all mythology, and then somebody says, they'll not reference that person, okay, it's all mythology, and then a third person might not even reference them and take it as a given. Oh yes, it's all mythology. And so this is the way the academic stuff is going right now, and it's kind of interesting. So I'm following that as closely as I can. I wanted to say something. I want to ask, oh, sorry, we're going to Tim?
Yeah, I want to ask a question. Is there a difference between the church and Christianity?
Wait, what do you mean by, are you talking about the church as in the ecclesia, or the church as in the church and the Roman Catholic Church?
The Roman Catholic Church, the Protestants, the establishment, if you like,
okay,
and
well,
Christianity.
Yes. Well, if you're talking about Roman Catholicism and the church as in the word ecclesia in the Bible, yes, there is a humongous difference. Okay, because the Roman Catholic Church is, I would describe as probably the devil's best strategy ever. What do I mean by that? There is nothing godly about the Roman Catholic Church in any way, shape, form. Okay, I see praying to dead people, not against the Bible. You can look that up in Deuteronomy. Okay. Bowing down to statues, making graven images of statues. That's in Exodus. Let's see. Coming, oh boy, I'm on fire. You're about to get me lit up, because I was already lit up about this today. Praying to pedophiles to come to forgiveness. I don't think so. I'm uplifting a pope. There's no pope in the Bible. All right. The Catholics say Peter was the first pope. You know what? You know who Peter was? A Jewish guy who who was martyred by Rome. Okay, and they want to say, oh well, we're the first church. Nothing in the Bible about that. Okay, you want to know? You want to know who started the Roman Catholic Church? I'll tell you. I'll tell you a brief history about that.
No, that's all right. That's all right. That's not what I'm trying to get at. You see, if I put the proposition that the church, whether it's Protestant or Catholic, whatever denomination it is, it's been the most successful political party in the Western world.
Okay, I see what you're
And
getting
if
at.
Jesus came back today, he'd be horrified by every denomination and the way he has been taken and dealt with.
I think
it doesn't matter if it's fundamentalism or liberal Protestantism or Catholic or Mormons or whatever.
Well, okay. Let's push the Catholic side. Let's put. Okay, one, Mormonism is a cult, so let's get that out of the way.
I think we can agree on that.
Catholicism, I already hit that one up. Now, as for the rest of the church, you know what? I think before we started the broadcast, I hit that up, but since we're live, I'm going to hit that up. Let me tell you what, we, the body, and I'm going to take ownership of this since I'm part of it, have a lot to apologize for. All right, because let me hit this up since we're live and there's Christians watching this. All right, we want to sing songs. There's no other name like the name of Jesus. Oh yeah, Jesus, we exalt your name, right? And then we want to go outside and we want to profane the name of Jesus. All right, people say don't take God's name in vain, right? Don't drop the G-bomb, right? But we want to take God's name in vain. How do we do that? By our actions. All right, we want to go out there and be hypocrites daily, right? How do we do that? We want to go and you know, I think my wife just made a good point. I love my wife, right? We want to go leave the church parking lot and cuss out the guy in front of us because he can't drive as well as we want. Ooh, boy, right? We want to go and watch rated R movies. Oh man, we want to go and you just go name it. That's how we take God's name in vain, right? And we can't get mad when you people, right, call us out for our hypocrisy. Oh yeah, I'm going to go there. So does that? I'm hoping I'm helping you out there, and I'm agreeing with your very point. You're right, and Jesus, right now, and I know it is because I prophesied this earlier last year that a consecration and separation, right? And look at what's happening right now in the United Methodist Church right now. What's going on with that? Oh,
Excuse me. On?
Right? What's going on with the United Methodist Church right now?
Didn't they just split over gay marriage?
Exactly. And I'm not the only one that prophesied that stuff like this would happen. Right?
That was a question in the audience as people are asking about. I want to build on some of the things you're saying. So we have some points I think we can all agree on is there are definitely a lot of people who are hypocrites out there, whether they're inside or outside of the church, whether they're Christians or they're non-Christians. There definitely is a population full of hypocrites. I think I hear somebody's typing, but you guys might want to put it on mute if you type. But anyway, so there's a big population of that. And there are some people who are not acting properly. Certainly one of the reasons I left the Catholic Church, I was raised in the Catholic Church. I went to Catholic grade school and my freshman year high school, but I left because of the way that the Pope was not dealing with these issues in the church with the priests. And so my whole family got upset about that. So, and my family hasn't returned except for my sister never left, but the rest of my family hasn't returned yet. And so that's a big concern. Wait, someone's typing.
Yeah, there's some crazy clicking going on.
Yeah, who's typing? It's like killing my ears right now.
Oh wait, it's Nathan. He's typing. I can see it in the chat.
I'm muted though. I'm definitely muted.
Just mute whenever you type. That's all.
Greg came in. Maybe having some feedback there.
Okay, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to quickly let Brenda get in here. I'm not sure what Brenda's position is, but we'll find out in just a second. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly send her an email. So I'll let you guys continue this conversation.
So I'm hoping what I'm saying is helping because God, before this broadcast even started, when I was in my prayer time this morning, this is something I was praying about this morning, and I'm telling you, God fired me up about this morning, actually burdened me with, and something I'm just really heartbroken about is this hypocrisy coming from us, just the damage it is doing. Oh boy, look, we have dead men in the pulpits producing dead people in the pews. Pretty much what's happening. And we wonder why people say, oh, I'm a Christian, but I just fell away. You know what? Because you were never Christian. Let me tell you what, a secret prayer with your eyes closed, a secret scripted prayer does not save you. Just saying what it is. That is not true repentance. Now that may offend people out there, but I'm just telling the truth, and I'm not the only one that says this, and I'm saying it out of love. Okay, I'm just saying it out of love. All right, there are people producing secret Christians, but that's not a Christian if you're a Christian in secret. In other words, okay, when you do this in church, all right, someone says, everybody close your eyes. All right, raise your hand so you're not ashamed. All right. I don't think. Oh, that's loud. All right, that's not what the Bible says. All right. Jesus didn't say. He said, "Do not be ashamed. Do not be ashamed." So when you close your eyes, all right, if you're not saved, all right, close your eyes. All right, that's not producing Christians. That's not producing Christians.
Let me ask this. I've got someone in the chat right now who just wants to know about, Brother John says, please ask David, tell us how many real Christians are there? Because according to you, 1 billion Catholics are following the devil and going to hell. That doesn't leave many left.
Okay, well, that's the truth. That is the truth. That is the truth. What else do you want me to say? I told you scriptures where you can find out that Catholicism is from the very pit of hell. I produced it, and I'm not the only one that said it. You know what? You think what I say is offensive? Go read what Leonard Ravenhill had to say about this.
No, I understand. I don't want to, the only thing is I don't want to go too far down the Catholics pathway, only because I'm a former Catholic. I can completely relate to people in the church. And
I'm not picking on Catholics, sorry, but somebody asked me that question. And don't get me wrong, I don't hate Catholics. I'm not single on Catholics. I can go on Muslims. I can go to JWs. I can go to Mormons.
Actually, that somebody also asked how you would talk somebody out of Mormonism. That was another question that was in the chat.
Good afternoon.
Well, I have.
Hello.
Good afternoon.
Well, I actually have.
Wait, do we have another person in here? Let me just double check.
Okay.
Yeah.
Phone now.
Brenda, are you here?
I'm here, but I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Great.
I think you must be you must not be showing your face because you're not showing up on the screen, but that's fine.
Yeah. I'm not on video. Is that okay?
Yeah, that's fine.
Oh,
That's fine.
Hold on.
But you can hear me?
Yes.
Okay, good.
Who the heck is that? So I just read a comment about something about
Yeah, that's me.
and be judged before the Christ on the Bema seat.
That's
I don't
me.
know what the hell that means.
Yes, that's me.
That's Brenda.
Okay, so since we have a new addition, this is Brenda, and Brenda, I believe it said she's also an atheist. So Brenda, did you want to introduce yourself and maybe share a little information? And those of you, if you're not talking and you're typing, just be sure to mute yourself. So, Brenda?
Do you think I'm Brenda?
Oh, I didn't know. Who is that? Who's
No,
This
it
is
was
Craig.
Brenda. It was Brenda talking.
Oh, it was
Craig.
Brenda. Okay,
Yeah.
I'm confused.
Okay. So I don't know.
Yes.
Okay, so did you want to share any information? I know you're new right here.
There seems to be a bit of a delay. Is that normal to have this large of a delay?
Are you
There is a
listening?
little bit of a delay between the, yes, there is a little bit of a delay on what we're going is, I think, maybe 30 seconds faster than what you see on the screen.
Don't listen to the stream. Listen to the Zoom.
I just listened to the Zoom, not the stream.
Yeah. Listen to the Zoom, not the stream. Mute the stream.
Okay, so I don't know if you want to share information or you want to just hang out for a little bit and
I seem
step
to
in
be
when you
having
feel like.
troubles with the audio.
I can hear you completely fine.
Yeah, your audio's good.
Okay, so someone's typing. There is that clicking noise. Someone's still typing. So, okay, yeah. So we've got people in the chat who are mentioning about this idea of the Catholics. Yes, it is a serious conversation. So that is something that's interesting. And Vera Cruz, happy birthday. Okay, so who is typing? Nathan, I think that's your computer. Can you put yourself on mute when you type?
No, I'm on mute on the microphone. I'm definitely
Okay.
muted.
It may be some feedback. I think it's maybe some feedback when Craig joined. I don't know if he.
Oh, is Craig
Is it
here?
me? Yes, I'm
Yes.
here. I thought you guys could hear me. You can't hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, but I think there's some clicking coming from that started when you joined. I don't know if it's.
I don't
All right,
know.
let me mute.
Connection.
See if it's me.
Is it Nathan again?
I'm having all kinds of problems with.
I can completely hear two people here. So, oh, Brother John says, stop the noise and mute everyone. Well, then nobody will talk.
Yeah, I think it stopped when Craig muted. I think there's some feedback coming or something, some clicking
Yeah.
from his mic or something.
Okay.
I'm back. Do you hear clicking? Because I
No,
still heard
it's all good now.
Oh,
Okay, good. I fixed
now
it.
it stopped. Good.
I fixed it. It's what tech savvy will do.
Okay, so Craig is in the house. So we have another Christian in the house and we have an atheist in the house. So Brenda and Craig have joined us.
All right, let's do this.
Oh boy, man. I'm just again. I'm glad Dan is leaving because I'm about to put Dan in timeout because he's being.
So the question from John Lloyd, thank you for the super chat. If heaven is real, would everyone want to go there? That's a good
No,
question.
not at all.
I mean,
No, assuming that it's like, let's assume for a second that that your particular story is real, then I wouldn't want to have anything to do with that God. No, I wouldn't want to go there.
Well, it depends on the alternative too. what are the other? What's it like there, and what are the other choices? That's those are important questions. That if certain conceptions of hell are true, then I mean I can understand from a Christian point of view that you would want to do anything you could to avoid going there. If it's just annihilation, that's a different question. But I think it's easy to say, oh, I'd go to hell, but if hell is a place of eternal torment, that's a tough one. That's after how many billions of years would you say, oops, that was a bad decision?
That was a mistake. This isn't as fun as it seemed up from the. It seemed at first.
well, heaven is described as a place of eternal joy. Okay, one, it's not an eternal worship service. Some people think that is, but all tears are wiped away. No more pain, no more sadness. I get a new body, which would be really cool because I'm kind of what the world? You know what? I'm gonna wait. Where'd they go? Sorry, I saw something I had to hide. Something about Satanists. No, dude.
Ignore it,
Um,
David.
Anyway, eternal joy, eternal. I get a new body, which would be really cool because I got a lot of nonsense going out of my body. I probably get a cool looking beard that's not so much in the gray, and so does my buddy there. I mean, really, honestly, and then I get to really look, and then I actually start getting more. I can actually understand things better because I know that I don't have everything 100% right. I tell people all the time that when I get to heaven, I'll find out how much I didn't know and how much I was wrong in. So, I mean, how much cooler can that get,
Yeah. So I've got a couple new people here, Craig and Brenda. I want to see if you guys want to add to that.
Yeah, I mean, basically, I kind of agree with what Dave said. If heaven is real, it's basically conceived the way you would conceive your best day on earth forever. So it's not like you get bored of it. You would, as it's written in the Bible, you'd have a life experience very similar to what you have now, except you'd have a youthful body that was perfectly healthy, and you'd be able to do really, really, really fantastically awesome things morning, noon, and night. There's not a single person who would turn it down. It'd be like the music would be like, you know, Beethoven meets the Clash. And you go to that concert, and then after the concert, you'd see the best movie you've ever seen in your life. Then you wake up in the morning and you have, you know, these constant, never-ending, awesome experiences, one after the other. It'd be very similar to Earth, except going on forever, and with a youthful, totally invigorated body and all knowledge. So I think it sounds good. I'd say it sounds
Can I
fun.
ask Craig then, what motivates you when you're in that position? Why do you bother to get up this morning? I'll wait for tomorrow.
Why do you bother to get up now? Is it problems that motivate you? Because
No, what
it's not.
motivates me now is my mortality. I've only got a limited time. So I've got to do what I do in this time I've got.
Well, that's potentially, that's truly your motivation now. But most people, if you ask them, let's say you had a career, and they said, you know, money wasn't an issue, you would have as much money, live in a mansion, what would you do? Most people would find things that they really truly enjoy to do, and they'd wake up and want to do them. And what would motivate them is, oh, cool, today I get to play guitar for 6 hours, then I go to the greatest concert that I've ever heard, then, you know, I go do X and it's absolute bliss, and then I go do X and it's even more fun. You know, what motivates you to have fun?
Hello,
Just
can I be heard?
delighting.
Can I be heard?
Yep, we can hear you.
Oh, thank you. I'm sorry. I got my, everybody seems to be using a different streaming service, and the audio settings are different for every one of them. So go ahead. I'm sorry. I got it all straightened out now, though.
Oh yeah, go ahead. And you want to introduce yourself? You haven't
Well,
been
you
on my
guys-
channel before.
I haven't been on your channel before. My name is Brenda Van Ozen. I'm 62-year-old male to female trans woman. I'm an atheist, and I live in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I'm not very well off. I'm sort of just living in an apartment, living on you know, whatever. And I enjoy debating with people over the internet, and thank you for inviting me.
Oh, cool.
Well,
Are
thank
on
you.
Twitter?
Welcome. Brenda, are you on Twitter?
Yes, I am. It's B Vanahsen, BVONAHSEN at Twitter.
Okay. All right,
Yeah.
great. Thank you.
Okay,
I have a question that just came in from Jesse Camping. I'll just throw it out there. Hold on one second. I want to say, just find this question again. Where'd it go? Where did it go? Oh, okay. It says, in case of the Old Testament, the split in time, BC and AD, New Testament, some biblical archaeology is history and others are dist 5 years either way. How is this explained? I actually have an explanation for that, but I didn't know if anybody else wanted to talk about that. I think that what if I'm correct, what Jesse's referencing here is there are people who've indicated, there's a hypothesis by a person called Schur that that the time when what was he called? Herod, the time when King Herod died is when Jesus was born, right? You know, before King Herod died, Jesus was born. And so the Schur's hypothesis basically says that Jesus must have been born somewhere around 4 or 5 BC. And other hypotheses have actually looked at Josephus's words about this eclipse and other things that appeared. And they realized that actually they could redate that to around 1 BC for when Jesus was born. There's no year 0. And then suddenly you get to the year 1. So it goes 1 BC, then the next year is 1 AD. So there's no 0 in there. So some people, because I think that might be what Jesse was getting into and that idea. I didn't know if.
Yes, I can understand that, but does that things like that really matter?
That's a good, yeah, I like to dig into that kind of stuff because I find it really interesting. I wrote a blog on it.
I go back to,
Someone's got a car in the background.
Yeah,
I think
go
maybe
back to
someone
my
who's
original question.
outside.
Yeah, my original question. Can somebody give me a definition of God which is comprehensible?
What do you mean? What are you looking for?
A definition.
A definition.
Well, I guess it's hard to understand. So my understanding of God is he's omnipotent, omniscient, he's omnibenevolent, He's omnipresent, so he's concurrently in the past, present, future. And as he says, he is I am, so he is
Right.
the great I am.
I mean,
So-
he always was. He's
What does that
outside.
mean?
He
What does that
he,
mean?
he always was. What do you mean? He always. It's like you're asking for a definition, and I'm
But
trying
it's
to.
like it's like the business. If you take go back to the Big Bang,
Mhm.
that's when space time started.
Okay.
To actually to talk of before the Big Bang, you cannot talk about before the Big Bang because time didn't exist.
Exactly.
So there is no before.
Well, in fairness, I mean,
It-
you could say we don't know that there isn't time outside of the Big Bang, though. I mean, there could
Yes,
be. We know
accepted.
our universe time started at the Big Bang, and if the Bang Crunch theories are correct, then there have been other timelines even in our universe. But you could imagine a being, an entity that exists with the outside of our universe with the ability to create our universe, who did create our universe. That to me seems like a comprehensible
Does
idea, even if I don't believe that such a being exists. There doesn't seem to be anything logically impossible about it or
But
nonsensical about it.
is what you're comprehending within the cosmos
Okay.
or outside the cosmos?
Okay. You want to know God? Look at Jesus. I mean, that's the best way. I mean, look, the Word became flesh. No one. What does the word? What does it say? Nobody has seen the Father. No one has seen God, and right. But that's what the Bible says.
Well, with
Besides,
respect, the Bible also said a donkey spoke.
yes,
Right.
and okay. Look,
Well, we know they can't.
yes. Well, God can do anything, right? Look,
Well,
you know what?
If you're prepared to make leaps like that, then you'll forgive anything.
Yes, I can, and because I can quantify
Cool.
what happened in my life.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure your anecdotes are convincing to you, but to everybody else, they're just stories.
Okay, well, you know what? You know what? Look up Professor Craig Keener. He has, I think, 2 volumes on miracles right now. Okay, 2
Mhm.
volumes on quantifiable, medically documented miracles. Okay, look up the case for miracles. There's a book on that. Those are quantifiable, medically documented miracles. Shoot.
well, rather
okay,
than to rather
think-
than
Why
to,
is this so contested in science then? If there's all these volumes of text, like
Well,
this should just be well, it just is, because look at all of this evidence. No, I'm sorry. And if there was this kind of evidence, we wouldn't even be having this discussion.
No, we're
It
having
would
this
just
discussion
be-
because you
it would
want to
just be
doubt it.
known.
Well, but hold on.
So,
I don't want to doubt it.
We have to just we
can't
have to break
possibly
these things
accept it.
down. Like the question of whether it's possible and whether there is good evidence to believe this happened are 2 different questions. I mean, when we talk about things like miracles, if we're going to evaluate them at all, we have to say, well, if it happened, then it would happen by a being that did have the power to change the laws of physics. So just saying it's not possible by the laws of physics in itself isn't evidence, isn't a good argument that it didn't happen. We can't say it's impossible if we're positing that it's done by a being who created the laws of physics and can change them. Now,
Yeah,
that's different
exactly.
from saying, do we have good reason to believe it happened? But I think we have to be clear in separating those 2 issues.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So I mean, either there are 2 volumes full of people, to include, by the way, doctors who all lied, right? So we have 2 volumes full of liars. So that's just 2 volumes by Professor Craig Keener. So doctors and people that happen to that are full of just liars, right? Which would mean they could lose their medical license, if I'm correct in this.
well, so far all you have is anecdote. Do you have any actual evidence?
That's what I'm talking
and-
about.
And
Evidence.
it's not necessarily
this
lying.
is
They could
just-
be mistaken.
You're
So-
just giving. This is just hearsay. You're just Do you have any actual evidence?
That's what I'm talking
Let
about.
me add to something on that. Let me just add to one of those points with the idea of miracles. Well, David has experienced his own miracles in his life, and they're pretty significant. Like, for example, he had a really serious case of PTSD. He had tons of medications he was taking, and suddenly that just disappeared. And so that's pretty amazing in his life. But I know that people will say that's an anecdote. But I also wanted to just point out the one that he mentioned with Craig Keener's book. There is a woman called Barbara Comiskey Snyder who had MS, and it was documented, and she was in a wheelchair, unable to walk, with her hands and feet were pretty much crumpled. And what happened was she was in her bed, pretty much on her deathbed. Her lungs had almost collapsed, and she was being helped to breathe and that kind of thing. And she couldn't see. And suddenly she heard the word, "My child, get up and walk." And she got up and started walking, and all the atrophy that she had disappeared. She completely was fine. And she went to her church that same night, and she had been in a wheelchair for years before that. And they saw her walking down the aisle, and the church just started cheering. So we've got her,
Yeah.
she's got medical documentation of that particular miracle, and that's
Yeah.
just one.
That's well, again, that's just you relating a story. That's a nice story. I can tell
So-
ghost stories. I can tell ghost stories too.
So either
So-
so no, let me say this. So either those medical professionals are liars, right? Which would mean
Or
they
they're
would lose their
mistaken.
medical license. So why would you say they're anecdotes? I don't get
Because
this
it's
denial.
just a story. It's just a story. We don't know that what SJ just said is actually true. We don't know that what the woman says is actually true, and we don't know what the physicians involved actually said. So you need to have documentation about all of these aspects before you could count it as a miracle. You simply taking somebody's word at something, that's called anecdote,
She
and that's
just-
not evidence.
She
So
just
that's,
said,
well,
she
I just, one of the things I'm trying to bring up, Brenda, is the fact that this has all been documented. The medical records and all of that kinds of stuff, all those kinds of things have also been documented. So
Well, you saying
she a
that doesn't
medical
make
t-
it. You saying
Sorry.
that doesn't make it so.
but they are medically documented.
No, but I don't know that.
Okay, you don't know. Okay, you say you don't. Okay, first of all,
Yeah, I'd need to
um,
see the documentation. I'd need to see that.
oh, that's because you choose not to believe. See, that's what happens when you're confused.
No, I'm not. I'm just skeptical. I'm just applying critical thinking, which is
no,
somebody
that-
tells me something. I apply my critical thinking, which is I demand evidence based, verifiable, falsifiable evidence that would support the claims that are being made. And so far, I haven't heard any.
Well, that's because that's what you choose to walk. When you are a confused person like you are, okay, when you are born a certain way, you choose. I choose confusion. You
That's
are
not
under
cool,
a.
I have
brother.
You are
not-
under a
That's
spirit.
not
I don't
fair.
care if it's
That's
cool or
not
not.
cool.
You are
Yeah,
walking
I'm
under a
not-
spirit of confusion right
that's
now.
fine. That's fine. You can personally attack me all you like, but
I'm
it
not
doesn't
personally
change the,
attacking you.
but it doesn't
It
change the
directly
fact.
did.
It doesn't change the fact that you need to provide actual scientific evidence, verifiable, quantifiable records from the medical people involved that this is actually what happened, and not simply word of mouth.
Yeah, but
okay,
we're
so
in a
let's
YouTube
change
chat right
topics.
now. Wait,
Let's
but we're in
change
a- let me just-
topics
Can I
here,
say
'cause
one thing?
Okay,
Can I say one
sure.
thing? Because didn't Stephanie say that this was documented and you can go check
Yeah,
and you can verify? Okay, we're in
I'd
a
love to see
YouTube
that.
chat right now. Okay, so
Yeah.
when the chat's over, I'm assuming you have actual links, Stephanie, correct?
Yeah, I can. That's a great point. I'll send that to you, Brenda, and see
There
what you think
are,
about that.
if you
That'd be
guys want
great.
to
I'd love
investigate
that.
this honestly, I can totally understand why you would take David's word as anecdotal. That's acceptable. But there are actual documented things that you can investigate for yourself. It's fine to be skeptical, but to be skeptical doesn't mean to just automatically discount. You have to investigate the claims, and you have to investigate the strongest claims, not the weakest claims. And
Yeah, I'm willing to do that.
I
okay,
mean,
well then
you-
there's no issue. So
So
Sure,
you,
though,
then
I
we're all
mean,
we
agreed.
also have to be careful that, not to just assume that when a rare event happens, that that automatically means it's a miracle. Rare events do happen. Serious illnesses do go into remissions, and people. So the issue isn't that this or that person necessarily is lying. I think most of the time people aren't lying, but people aren't always the best interpreters of their own experience. It's not. We talked earlier about bias, and we have numerous cognitive biases which affect our interpretation of our own experience. So just having an experience doesn't mean we've correctly interpreted the experience. And the problem with science in these type of situations is with one-off events, it's very hard to catch one-off events in a really strong documented sense, because most of the time they're not asking questions in a controlled manner. They're not catching it early enough. So we just have to be very careful. It's not to say that it must be wrong, must not be a miracle, but rare events do happen, and often it will be interpreted by people in a certain way, and that interpretation in itself is not strong evidence that helps us figure out what's going on.
I think
there's-
I want to, let me just add something really quick. Vekl just joined us. We've got another Christian. So actually now we're kind of more evenly balanced here.
Brother Vekl.
Yeah,
Hey,
so
guys.
there's another question that comes up with regard to miracles, which is there are plenty of other religions that also claim miracles. So do you believe in the miracles that prove the existence of other gods and other deities in other religions?
I would have to see what
Oh,
they were.
Suddenly you're a skeptical non-believer, isn't that?
I'm not
weird?
skeptical. I didn't say they didn't happen. I didn't say they did happen. But
Yeah.
I like the way Dr. Brown put it, is that gullibility is not a fruit of the spirit, and skepticism is not a good fruit of the spirit. Right now, when you say that, I'm being a good Barian. In other words, am I saying they didn't happen for sure, or they did happen? You would have to give me perfect examples of it.
Well, there's actually you don't believe in Catholicism, but Catholicism has a long history of what they claim to be documented, verified miracles performed by the Virgin Mary or other notables, also by their saints. That's how you become a saint, is by showing a documented, verifiable miracle.
But those aren't miracles according to the Bible. See, I'm talking about what's
So all
according
of
to
a
the
sudden,
Bible.
yeah, all of a sudden we get all this skepticism from you when
Exactly.
you don't have any skepticism in the other case.
But listen to what I say, according to the Bible. The Bible is my foundation. Okay, not
Why is-
Catholicism, not the Quran, not any other source, but
why is-
the Bible.
Okay, so let's go. Let me switch gears here a little bit, just so we, so what we'll do to follow up on the miracles is we'll find the links to these miracles and provide them to Brenda and anybody else who wants them. And so we'll do that. But let me go to, I just want to have Vekl introduce himself too, since he just joined, and I also have a super chat that is talking about verifiable. So but right before Vekl, let me just mention the super chat. So John Lloyd, thank you, says, what do agnostics here think about the NASA, Army, Navy documents that have been released to the public state Earth is flat and not rotating? Wow. But we'll
there
first
are
go
no
to,
such arguments. There are no such documents. They don't exist.
so
I'm familiar with what he's talking about.
Has anybody seen the YouTube talk by, I've forgotten his name, the bloke who wrote Fantasyland?
No.
It's a recent video, and he talks about Fantasyland, and it's all about the fact that we have alternative truths now. From Kellyanne Conway talking about alternative facts. We got to go back to the things, we're all entitled to our own opinions, but we're not entitled to our own facts.
Very true.
Yeah.
that's
And
fair.
I think we have
Yes,
to.
I agree with you. I agree with you on that. Yeah, I'm totally in agreement.
Brian Stevens also has a super chat. Says, can Nathan read my comments? Nathan, can you read Brian Stevens' comments?
Yeah, sure. So I think it was on that Brenda case. Brian was saying he's read extensively into it, and he said there are doctors who thought it was psychosomatic or psycho. So I don't know if you misspelt there. The one doctor who talks about it a lot is deeply religious with family and missionary work, and around I'm not sure if it was 20% or 16% of MS cases are misdiagnosed, and he put some links up as well to do with that specific case.
Okay,
Oh,
so is he
okay.
saying if somebody's deeply religious that we shouldn't take their point of view seriously?
No, what he's saying is that all things being equal, what is more likely, that a miracle occurred in which violated the laws of nature, or that somebody is either mistaken or biased?
Okay, that's fair. So let me go. I still want to get back to Vekl because he contributed quite a bit last time I was in this chat, and I haven't. Vekl, can you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself?
Yeah. Sorry, my hand's a little tied right now. My daughter.
Don't worry, brother.
Perfect timing, right?
I got 3 kids, so
most people know me. I'm a believer in Christ. I've been acting as an apologist, also on YouTube. Most people that know me know my affiliation with G-Man. So most people know G-Man first, and then they, when they hear G-Man, they say, "Oh, who's this Vekl guy?" So they always think that we're like, related or somehow, but we're not. So yeah, that's it.
Somebody
I'm
wants
happy to just
attention.
and my daughter is demanding attention right now, so I'll stick around.
it's okay, brother.
Okay,
I like I said, I got 3 kids at home, so.
thank you, John Lloyd. Thank you. He put a link in here to this NASA reference that he had before, so that'd be something to click on.
Can I?
Well, go ahead.
I was gonna. First of all, Vekl said he was what, G-Man's sidekick. That's. I'm Stephanie's sidekick. That's how people know me. I was gonna address briefly what Brenda said because actually she made a good point. In the Catholic Church, how they would canonize a saint, and it's still true to this day, is there have to be documented. There has to be at least rumors that the person was able to perform miracles, signs, and wonders. Now, that's actually relevant because Paul gives his scriptural predicate for his authority in God as the power demonstrations of the power of God, not philosophies, not wise words, but actually when he shows up to the party, miracles, signs, and wonders show up with him. And that's how people attest to the fact that this person is actually walking with God. So I thought Brenda actually made a really good point. You can be skeptical about miracles as much as you want. I totally accept that. The only thing that I would say, and I totally agree with pleasure of doubt too, is investigate them and investigate the strongest ones, because the weakest ones, obviously nobody believes, or they're obviously fake, and there can be plenty of delusions. But the strongest ones, might make you question whether they can in fact happen. That's the only thing I would say. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, I agree with you on that point. There's nothing disagreeable on
Yeah.
that one. That's why if you take, for instance, Professor Craig Keener's volume, and I know other people that are actually going through that process to be verified, it takes a very long time to go through that. As for your Catholic point of miracles, by the way, which I know about, by the way, because I've been to Rome personally twice. I've been to the Vatican twice. So I know all about the Catholic miracles and what they consider a miracle. And also, by the way, not all of that is correct to be canonized into a saint. I mean, they can say they have found we found the nail that was part of the crucifixion of Christ. Hey, guess what? We verified that, and now they're a saint. So I probably know a bit more about the canonization of Catholic saints than some of you out there, just because of I've been there,
Well,
and I know some of these so-called miracles. By the way, and like I said, you may say, well, they did this miracle, they did that, and that's how they got it. Look, my basis is the Bible. That's what I use. Does the Bible say? What does the Bible say? Okay, one, say the canonization of saints. Well, according to the Bible, any person who has Jesus as the Lord and Savior is a saint. Paul wrote to the saints in Ephesus. Paul wrote to the saints in Corinth. Nobody ever had to be canonized as a saint. There you go.
Is the Catholic Church based on the Bible?
No.
That's right. It's based on, it's a direct lineage from Jesus Christ himself.
Wrong.
No, that's true.
Wrong.
It's directly from Jesus Christ himself.
Wrong. Jesus.
No, the Catholic Church created the Bible.
No.
Yes, it did. Yes, it did.
You guys, let me go. I don't want to. One thing I don't want in the conversation is to have fighting or anything that seems unpleasant. So just try to keep everybody being respectful.
Right.
I want to say just really quick. Mark Angelotti has asked. He says, "Can we accept the veracity of miracle stories on testimony alone?" And then another question he asked is, "What if the Bible is wrong?" So if anyone wants to take that,
probably not. It depends in terms of testimony alone. In order for you to believe somebody's personal testimony, you would have to know that person well enough to find them eminently credible. So probably not, but you might be able to decide that somebody was telling the truth on like a YouTube video or something just by you going, I believe them. You know, if we take it out of the religious so that the controversy is taken, the heat is taken out, let's take Bigfoot. There are people who have reported to have seen Bigfoot. Did they? Some of them are probably lying and some of them are probably deluded, but I don't know. I'm very agnostic on Bigfoot. I don't believe or I don't disbelieve. There could be a Bigfoot.
Oh.
I don't understand why there'd be random sightings if there weren't.
I actively
Go
disbelieve in Bigfoot for the same reason I actively disbelieve in God. I'm a positive atheist, and I'm a positive atheist with regard to Bigfoot and UFOs. Since there is no evidence for these things, there is no justification for my belief in them.
And actually, Craig, you said
remember-
something really interesting. You said something really interesting a second ago, Craig. You said, can we accept personal testimony? You said, probably not unless we know the person or something like that. And based on that, you certainly don't accept Paul's Damascus Road conversion because you don't know him, and that's just a testimony written in a book, right?
I didn't say that. My Christianity is based on me reading the Bible and going, wow, this seems totally true. So in that sense, that's not why.
So you don't accept it?
No, there's no
Don't
way
accept
to-
the Damascus Road conversion.
That's not what I said. Don't do that.
Well, no,
It's not
but
what I
what you said
said.
was, but what you said
Okay.
was you probably shouldn't
Okay,
accept
I
personal
just
testimony.
hello. If you're asking me why I became a Christian, it was
I didn't ask
not.
that. I didn't ask that at all. I asked you if, because of your statement that you shouldn't accept personal testimony, then do you accept the Damascus Road conversion? Because that's just a story as well. I didn't even ask about your Christianity. That's
Very related to why I accept the Damascus Road conversion.
It would be great if you could just answer my question, though.
I accept the Damascus Road conversion, but it's not a simple yes/no question. If it is a simple question, yes/no question in your mind, then you're setting it up falsely to gotcha a Christian, and you didn't.
No,
it's not as
I
simple
simply
yes/no
asked
question.
you a question based on a statement that you.
I get, and my answer is yes,
Okay.
but my answer is based on
You answered my question.
Yes, I accept Paul's testimony as valid because it matches some of my own experiences with the Holy Spirit, not because I read it first and said that's got to be true. I can understand why an atheist would when David is saying, you know, you got to just believe the Bible and then you'll know. I can totally understand why an atheist doesn't accept that. I can get that. If you're an atheist, you don't believe the Bible, so you're not going to read Paul's conversion and go, aha, I am now. There are maybe some people who become Christians that way, but that's not how I became a Christian. I wouldn't have believed Paul's testimony first. I found it convincing because it matched my own very similar experiences with the Holy Spirit. Very similar. That's why I found it convincing. So,
Okay.
Can I ask a question regarding the Bible? You see, as an atheist, I'll say something which I think the Bible is true, but it is interpreted completely wrongly. Let me explain. I think the Bible is in fact teaching us something. It is about us as humans, not about God, not about, and I think it's about Jesus, who was a great teacher. But if you look at it like that, it becomes a very profound book. And it is much more, it's in a sense, much more understandable. And if Christians said that to me, Christianity would be much more understandable for me.
there are Christians who actually interpret the Bible the way you're talking about, and they call themselves Christians. They still believe in God, but they interpret it much more on a human level, and you would probably like them a lot more than, you know,
Actually,
other people.
brother, you know what? You're almost there. What the Bible is partially from Genesis to Revelation is all about Jesus. What? All about Jesus, partially.
Craig,
All about,
Dave,
it's all about the story of redemption. God actually had a plan for redemption from the very beginning for all of us. And you will see, if you read the Bible in that light, in that light. Now, it's not all of that, but the redemption thread, God redeeming us all throughout the Bible. All throughout the Bible. God focuses his love on us throughout the Bible.
Well, the thing is that I don't have any good reason to believe either the Bible or in God or the message of the Bible or the message of Christianity or of any other religion. I've looked into them, and none of them are credible to me.
Let me just say something really quickly, because something that Tim said, and I just want to build on this, and I know you guys have been addressing this, but I want to point out how I came to, one of the ways that I came to Christianity recently, because I had left the Catholic Church, as I mentioned, and I came back, and I ended up being born again, and I went through that whole process. But one of the reasons I came back is because of this book right here, and this is C.S. Lewis's book with Mere Christianity in it, and I was recommended this by a pastor on a plane in a sort of serendipitous meeting. But this particular phrase was what brought me back. So I am trying here to prevent anyone saying the really foolish thing that people often say about him. I'm ready to accept Jesus as a great moral teacher, but I don't accept his claim to be God. That is the one thing we must not say. A man who was merely a man and said the sort of things Jesus said would not be a great moral teacher. He would either be a lunatic on a level of a man who says he's a poached egg, or else he would be the devil of hell. You must make your choice. Either this man was and is the Son of God, or else a madman or something worse. You can shut him up for a fool, you can spit at him and kill him as a demon, or you can fall at his feet and call him Lord and God. But let us not come with any patronizing nonsense about his being a great human teacher. He did not leave that open to us. He didn't intend to. That I read, and I was absolutely blown away, because I'd been looking for that for many years.
So why should that be true?
Yes.
Like, first of all, you know, if we take Jesus as a man who said some things that other people recorded, first of all, we shouldn't expect that they recorded it like a dictaphone. So they probably didn't record it word for word. But even if, say, Jesus existed, but there is no God, and they had delusions of grandeur or so forth, why does that prohibit him from having wisdom and having knowledge that's useful for people that can help guide people? I don't see the contradiction there.
I can tell you that. Well, because he said things that literally got him killed. Okay, if you actually read the New Testament, he never once denied being God. Okay, other people would make that claim, and every chance he had to deny it, he never once. He could have said, no, stop. I'm not that, but he never once denied it. And when he was resurrected from the dead, Thomas said these words, and I could pull up the Greek if you want.
No, but I'm not talking about could he be divine. I'm saying let's accept for the sake of the argument that there's no God, just for the sake of the argument, and that what SJ just read was the statement that no one could say the things Jesus said and not be divine or completely mad. And I don't know why we should accept that. That
I'm telling
even
you
if
why. I'm trying to give you the evidence why he is, why the things he very said. Well, one of the reasons I told you why the Pharisees would accuse him. You just made blasphemous statements of being divine. He could have denied it. He'd be like, no, I did not. I made nothing of divine statements. But he never once did
why
that.
is that not consistent with him being a person?
That was what I think what he's trying to say is that, and what he is saying is basically that Jesus was crucified for claiming that he is the Son of God. In fact, he said, "You will see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven," as a direct reference to the book of Daniel. And the Pharisees at that point ripped their shirts and said, "We've got to crucify him," because they figured that he was saying he was the Son of God, and they did not believe it. And so Jesus was crucified for that very reason.
And then
okay, but why is that inconsistent with him being wise?
Well,
but
It's not. He is
non-divinely
wise.
wise.
it's
No,
not. He
no,
also,
no, but in a non-divine way. Like what the passage you just read seemed to indicate is that if there isn't a God, then Jesus wasn't a great man. He was just a crazy person. That's seemed to be what that passage was saying.
well,
And I don't think those are our only choices. I don't know why.
Right.
Yeah, sorry.
I tend to agree with pleasure of doubt. Not that I disagree with Stephanie and David. Obviously, I'm with them on who Jesus is, but I don't see it as wise for Christians to present it as totally zero sum. You, the atheist, the non-believer, I'm not exactly sure where pleasure of doubt is on the scale, but what he's saying is, why can't he just interpret it where he's at? You know, this is a potentially wise man who history has deemed one of the greatest moral teachers of all time. Why can't I just read it and think he's wise? I think it's better to give him that option, that middle ground, because it's easier to get along. First of all,
well,
I think you need to have it revealed to you supernaturally. That's how I think people become an actual Jesus is the incarnate Christ Christian, is that the Holy Spirit reveals it to your heart.
well,
If the Holy Spirit
How
hasn't
would you
done that,
know? How
let
would you
people-
know?
you're absolutely right, Craig. I have no disagreement with you. However, the Bible does say, remember, Paul did write, Apollo planted, I watered, and God. So we are here today.
Oh yeah, I totally agree with that.
Either watering or planting. So you're absolutely right in your statement.
But I think you're asking for a middle ground, right? Pleasure, doubt.
Well, yeah,
non-
I'm saying, and I was talking specifically about. I think there is a middle ground, but I was talking specifically about that quote that SJ read. But yes, I do think, and just like that Tim said, that I think there would be more middle ground if we, between non-believers and believers, if we could just say, well, let's take a look at the Bible. What does it say? What do we think about it? You know, what do we like? What don't we like? What can we take from it? I think there is a lot to take from it.
SJ, can I ask you a question?
Sure.
Do you think that Jesus claimed he was God?
Yes.
Yes.
In Mark
Why
14:62.
why is it only in John, which is the last gospel?
It's actually, no. It's in Mark 14:62. I am, and you will see the Son of Man coming on the clouds of heaven and sitting at the right hand of the Father. The fact that he pointed out he'd be sitting at the right hand of the Father had direct implications for Jewish people because they knew what that meant according to the scriptures.
Can I follow that up with a question, SJ?
Sure.
Then why in Luke, I think it's Luke 18, I don't remember where, does he say, why do you call me good? No one is good but God.
He was not making.
Why is he talking about himself in the third person like that?
Hold on. Let me bring up because people always get
That's
that
a good
one
question,
wrong.
actually.
People always get that one wrong because that's called proof texting. That's called proof texting. In other words, you take one little passage of scripture, or I call it reading around it, reading around the text. So let's bring it up. I
just call it reading the Bible.
Well, no, you have to read.
Does it in fact say that or not?
Okay, are you gonna let me talk or are you gonna interrupt me?
It does say
just
that, but
asking
the
the
question
question.
is, why did he say it? You know, in relation to the
I know. Let's
step-
read the full passage and context.
Fire away.
Context is everything. Is that not correct?
Sure, fire away.
As he's about to do that, I want to point out that there are quite a few instances in the Gospels where Jesus refers to himself either in the first person or in the third person, and you have to read the full passage to really understand.
Yes, but
Thank you,
this is
SJ.
what is purported that Jesus said. What I'm saying is that I don't think Jesus ever claimed to be God. If he was a good, wise man, I think he was probably like Buddha, who some people say claimed to be God, but others say never claimed to be God.
If he didn't claim to be God, why do you think they crucified him?
Yeah, and let's talk about what the actual text says. I mean, you're telling us that this is what.
But the text was written years after he spoke.
All right.
That's irrelevant. Let's talk about what the text actually says, other than your opinion of what actually might have been interpreted or prior to the text being handed to people.
I mean, I can completely. We can completely debunk the whole, well, it was written years after, and therefore, I mean, we can completely debunk that easily in the context of, well, why can't people remember anything today? Well, let's see. We don't remember anything as it is. Well, back then, Jewish men knew the whole Torah knew the whole Tanakh inside and out, hand and back. And everything back then was done by what? Oral teaching. And they walked around with Jesus for 3 years, knew his teachings, and he taught the same thing over and over and over again for 3 years. So they had it memorized. They learned everything by memorization. So they would have remembered it anyways because they taught it to others. He sent them out to teach to others. So I'm not going to get into that, but I hope that gives enough for how they would have been able to write it down anyways. So the
Okay, so-
teacher, why shall I inherit life? Why are you calling me good? Yeshua said to him, no one is good except one, that is God. You know the commandments, blah, 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 blah. I mean, they were asking him, good teacher, what shall I do to inherit life? Through God. Okay, it's through God. That's how you inherit life. Not
My
through a good
difficulty,
teacher.
Dave, with
Seems
this
to be
this
adding
whole
to the
thing.
text.
If I look at Jesus as a man,
Sure.
I can see a good man. If I look at Jesus as this divine thing, a son of God, I see God as a moral monster.
I mean, look.
And not just. How do you get salvation?
We repent, which means turn away from the world. We turn to Jesus, to God, or we turn to God through Jesus.
Can that happen in 5 minutes?
Sure.
Right.
Why?
Do Christians say that all Jews are in hell because they're not believers in Christ?
Not all. Anyone who is not a believer. Why? What's wrong with that?
Right. We don't know what happened in the last 20 minutes of Hitler's life. Okay? Nobody knows. Okay. He could have turned to Jesus then, couldn't he?
Sure. I mean, son of Sam.
And so he could be in heaven, and 6 million Jews who he slaughtered would be in hell. Is that just?
Look, God is just. Son of Sam, listen to me. Son of Sam is in prison for the rest of his life. Am I correct?
I'm asking, can you answer my question? Hitler could be in heaven, and 5 million Jews who went through the Holocaust and were butchered by the Nazis, and I'm telling you, will be in hell.
Correct.
Yes.
So let me actually, I want to go. Nathan wants to make a point, and he hasn't.
Is that just?
Yes.
Yes, it is just.
It's just.
How is it just?
That's terrible.
How is it just?
Are we speaking based off of something objective here or subjective? Are we giving you opinions, or are we going by something that's not contingent upon our personal perspective?
As a human being, Vekl, I'll ask you, as a human being, do you see that as just?
I'm not looking at
I'm asking Vekl. Just a moment. Asking Vekl.
Okay.
If as a human
You're asking
being,
me as a human being who is a believer in Christ, that means my mind is one with God. So I believe that God is the one in whom all things come from. So when we're talking about things like morality, for example, okay, just because we don't have a full understanding of what God is doing, that doesn't mean that what he's doing is immoral. You're coming from a standpoint of naturalism or some material.
No. You're looking
what
I'm trying to say
from a materialistic fashion, and you're saying that you're making this conclusion that what God did or God allows, that would make him an absolute immoral evil. But I want you to give me something that I can put my teeth in,
right?
That is not contingent upon your feelings or my feelings, that would tell me and prove to both you and me that what this thing here that we're talking about is intrinsically immoral. Because when you tell me that
I'll describe it. We as human beings.
When you tell me that it's immoral, okay, if you're speaking from opinion, I can't argue against that.
I think it would. I think if this is God's justice, it's immoral. He's a moral monster.
Okay, let me personalize it. Let me personalize it for me. Let me make it very personal for me. I was in Iraq, right? I lost 8 of my friends to a roadside bomb, blown to bits by terrorists, right? If they weren't believers in Jesus, they went to hell. But if those terrorists who blew them up had a dream about Jesus, because that's how a lot of Muslims are brought to Jesus, and they chose to believe in Jesus, and now maybe they got killed somehow, they went to heaven, so be it. So be it. And that's okay by
the
me.
problem. A lot of non-believers don't understand this aspect of God's of justice and grace. So that what they'll see is they'll look at a person who's done a whole bunch of good, but refused Christ and die and go to hell.
I would just
absolutely immoral thing. But this person, this mass murderer, has been doing nothing but killing people all his life. At his dying breath, gives his life to Christ and goes to heaven. And they see that unfair, and understandably so, because they're looking at it from a very naturalistic point of view. But again, from that standpoint, I don't understand how you can. I mean, if you're speaking subjectively, that's fine. Nobody can argue against your opinion. But I mean, I don't understand why Christians are constantly being bombarded by these opinions from atheists saying that, I think your God is a moral monster.
well, I would just like you
no,
to explain.
let me defend myself a bit on this, Vekl. I think we are born with a duty of care. And that duty of care comes from our evolution. We are a social, no, just let me finish. Don't just shake your head. Listen to me. We're a social animal. One of the things my father told me early on in my life was that the world can exist without you, Tim, but you cannot exist without the rest of the world. I rely on other people. My existence is valueless if there's nobody else. So we have to consider things as human beings. That's the only thing we've got. We make our judgments. We have to take responsibility for our lives. We in here take responsibility. I do not want to pass the responsibility onto somebody else to say, well, that's his justice. That's the justification for it. I've got to justify it to myself.
Okay, that's fair.
Okay, that's
Okay.
Well
I
said.
just like to hear from the Christians what is justice.
what is justice? It's God. Okay, look, God made a way. Okay, we screwed up, and we screw up every day. We are horrible, moral monsters in and of ourselves, and yet God made a way for us to come to Him. God made His way to have eternal life.
Well, that's
And yet-
salvation. That's
and yet-
salvation.
no,
I don't.
Okay,
That's salvation. That's
okay.
salvation, right?
Are you
That's
gonna?
salvation.
Okay, are you gonna let me finish? You're gonna interrupt me, dude. Are you gonna let me finish, brother? Because either I can,
Maybe if you addressed her correctly, she would.
Okay, don't do that. Please don't do that.
I'd just like you to tell me what justice is, not what salvation is.
I am explaining to you justice. All right. God made it, and yet people choose to reject that every day. So God now says, well, you know what? I made a way, yet you reject it. You reject it. So I made a way. I made a way for you to have a free pass. I wrote the check. I wrote the check for you. Here you go. Free check. But you never signed it your entire life. That's your fault.
That's great. Could you tell me what? That's great. Could you tell me what justice is, please?
All right, brother. You're going to keep interrupting me. I'm just going to shut up and let you have your way.
Well, just before we go on, I think
Well, wait,
you're
let's-
deliberately going on to misgender Brenda, and I don't think you need
Let's-
to do that, regardless of what your
Well,
personal
I just like him to
ideas
answer the
are.
question instead of talk about salvation. Justice isn't salvation. They're different things. Tell me what justice is.
Okay, I'm telling you the answer that you don't like, but that's my answer. Okay.
Well, I don't understand it. Then I don't understand it. How does what you said, which is apparently salvation, how is that justice?
Because God paid the price for us already. He wrote the blank check, and people reject. People, if you don't cash a check, you get what you deserve. That's your choice. That's your fault, not my
Okay,
fault.
Let's go to, I want to switch it up just a little bit because I want to, Nathan actually has a very funny background right now. It looks like there's pictures of WLC and other people, but Nathan has put in the chat a while ago that he wanted to say a couple things. So I want to go to Nathan. He hasn't said much in a while.
Yeah, I was just going to, I think there were 2 points when you were talking about the divinity of Jesus. So I wanted to recommend this book first called Jesus as God by Murray J. Harris. And he's actually was William Lane Craig's Greek professor when he was at university. And it's basically about how the authors of the Gospels went to quite an extent to show the divinity of Jesus. Now, obviously, there's a second issue as to whether that actually corresponds to anything in reality. But in terms of just taking the text as it is, for example, we've got the Septuagint, the Greek translation of the Old Testament, where the word kurios is used for Yahweh's name, and then they refer to Jesus as kurios in the Gospels, and this is like a clear affirmation of his deity. So to say it's not there in the Gospels, like say Jehovah's Witnesses do, is just like a wrong interpretation. But then that isn't a proof that it's actually there in reality. For example, the authors might have been saying this because they had theological motivations, and Jesus might not have said it in that. These aren't necessarily my opinions, but like there's the 2 issues of what does the Bible say, and like, is this actually good enough evidence for us to believe Jesus was divine?
Can I plug a book in?
Sure.
Okay, hold on. Let me just get off the shelf. This book here almost caused me some marital problems, man. Is it backwards for you guys?
No, I see it.
No.
Okay, so you see the word Trinity, right? It's not backwards for you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, great. This book is written by the late Robert Morey, Dr. Robert Morey. It's one of the books. It's called Trinity, Evidences and Issues. Highly for Christians who want to defend and get to understand the Trinity doctrine a lot better. I highly suggest getting this book, man. Tell you, this book almost caused me marital problems because I couldn't put the book down. So I'm getting marriage counseling right now because of this book. My wife wants me to spend more time because this book is too good. But it covers all kinds of stuff from the Old Testament to even to the intertestamental writings, and of course the New Testament. But because I'm more focused on, Christians are more familiar with the Trinity in the New Testament, but not much is talked about in the Old Testament, though. So at least the plural nature of God anyway in the Old Testament. So highly recommend this book. And then of course you got James White's book, which is called it's a much thinner book, but this one, man, woo-wee, good stuff, man. Highly recommend it.
You can always tell when somebody likes their book because just like that, see how I have all these you can see that in his book.
I'll show you mine that I'm reading.
Sure.
And that is
All right, this is my battery power.
William Lane Craig. And I find this quite extraordinary.
Really? You're reading William Lane Craig?
And I find it quite extraordinary in that I think he is so wrong.
Which book are you reading of his? Are you Reasonable Faith?
Reasonable Faith.
On Guard. Okay, I have that
I
book.
tell you
That's
what,
a great book.
the thing that I find about him that is wrong is this chapter, the absurdity of life without God. That he talks about this purposeless, that we're purposeless without God. It has, that this meaningless life, that we're all going to die, and this whole thing, and that is totally unreasonable. But it's a fact. If it's a fact, you can't change your beliefs to change the facts to suit your beliefs, which is what he's doing, I think. Vekl, you've frozen.
Well, I want to give you a lot of credit for reading that book because I think that would be dangerous to atheism to me. But of course, that's my opinion.
No. Well, I know lots of atheists who read the books by various theologians such as Craig, Plantinga, and other theologians. Yes.
Well, sorry, folks, my battery power is running down, and it's almost time for Dr. Brown's show. So I'm gonna have to hop off here, and
Okay.
So I
Well, thank
appreciate.
you. We
all
probably
of
won't
you.
go too much longer. We'll probably maybe go another maybe till 3 o'clock, another 7-8 minutes or something like that.
But
So,
anyway, I appreciate all of you. And so thank you all for allowing me to be on. And God bless you all. And well, now
Thank
you know
you.
who I am and how I am. And well, if I offended you, that was not my purpose. But at the same time, I am not going to apologize for it either, because I'm just bringing the truth of God in love. And I love all of you regardless. So God bless you all.
Thank you.
Okay.
God
Have a
bless you too.
magically enchanted day.
So if I had to, so each of you, if you want to recommend, why don't we talk about maybe a book recommendation, since a couple of us have made book recommendations. If anyone else would like to make a book that maybe you think has made a change in you, or you changed your perspective on something, if you want to.
Well, actually, it's a question I ask other people. What is the first book you read that had the most influence on you? The first book you read, not the present books. As you were growing up, what was the first book you read that had the biggest influence on
The
you?
Narnia Chronicles, hands down. Lion, the Witch, and Wardrobe.
Yeah, for me, it was Why I'm Not a Christian by Bertrand Russell.
That was your first book?
Yes, in high school.
Okay, high school. Okay. I was going to say, that's an awful.
The first one that had influence with me is, I agree with Brenda, by the way, that Why I'm Not a Christian is fantastic. It's Lord of the Flies.
Oh,
Lord of
interesting.
Flies is a good
Interesting.
book. It's a Christian allegory.
Yeah. Well, Lord of the Flies is obviously based off of Beelzebub, right?
I think it tells us what we are capable of. Well, that's,
Yeah, I think it's more social commentary than religious, but
yes,
whatever.
psychological.
Yes, it is.
So in
Anybody
the chat,
else? Come
people
on.
are typing in some of the other books. Age of Reason by Tim Payne. We've got Don't Check Your Brain at the Door by Josh McDowell. So there's a couple other ideas.
What's the
there
question?
too.
Just a book that influenced you?
Yeah, a book
No,
that had early
the
influence on
earliest
you.
book that it had influence on you.
All Quiet on the Western Front.
That, yeah, I agree. That's a good book.
I
that's
was
a good
like
book.
shattered by it. I thought it was like, I was obsessed with it for a while.
Yeah, it is a shattering.
That was, and I'll go in my second book just to say, so Lion, the Witch, and the Wardrobe, when I was in 5th grade, and I read all the Narnia Chronicles, and I was just completely in love with that, and that changed me forever. But then when I was in, right after I got out of college, I read Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged, and I actually loved that book. 2,000 pages of fun.
Oh no.
I'm a capitalist.
I had a friend I was trying to talk out of her ethical theory of egoism.
Oh, I don't like her ethical theory of egoism, but I do like that book.
So one of the ones for me, a more recent book, was The Missionary Position by Christopher Hitchens. And it's basically a story about Mother Teresa. And one of the things that's so good about it is it exposes a person who was revered as this unbelievable good in the world, and what an absolute monster she actually was in real life. So I recommend reading that, even though it's written by a now deceased heathen. And the other one, from a young age, and I still try to read. Well, I wouldn't say I read it every day, but I listen to it. I try to listen to it every day. Is the Bible. It is what absolutely made me an atheist. It is not a book. I think it's interesting. I don't think it's something that should be taken very seriously, because of all the falsehoods in it and the demonstrable falsehoods that are in it. And just say that.
Okay, well, obviously the Christians who are in the room here are going to disagree with you on that, but that's okay. So we'll go to, does anyone else want to say a recommendation before we?
Yeah, I was going to say the Bible, because it actually brought me out of atheism into truth.
You were never really
I
an
don't see
atheist.
any, the falsehoods, a lot of the things that most atheists might interpret as falsehoods. I didn't see them as falsehoods. I just saw them as misinterpretations on the part of the atheist, and did some research and come to a different conclusion. But I didn't see Jesus walk on water. I didn't see any miracles personally. You want to talk about paranormal activity, that's a vastly different subject. But I have experienced that. But it's for me personally, it's been a number of different things that brought me to the faith. But the Bible to me is the #1 book. So.
What paranormal activity have you witnessed, Vekl?
Oh, we don't need to talk about that.
Oh,
I'll say
another
this is a
time.
modern
I'm
book.
just-
but,
I've seen
just
things.
curious. I'm just curious.
I've seen things like things move from one side of the room to the next, or then I've heard testimonies of people who have children who have mentored and stuff. They talked about some weird stuff they've seen. Friends of mine have seen some weird stuff. Me personally, I haven't seen any like ghosts or black shadows or anything like that, but all my life I've heard of stories like that.
That's weird, because I have never in my life had a single experience that I would count as paranormal.
That's okay. I've never seen Megan Fox in real life either. Doesn't mean she doesn't exist.
Yeah, but we could test that.
I'll give you a modern book that I wouldn't say.
Sure, you can. You can test the
book
fact
to me,
that
but
Megan
a
Fox
useful
exists.
one.
But you can
Very
also test the fact that people who have these thousands and thousands of people with similar testimonies, they're not crazy. If you want to just jump to the conclusion that they're loony because you haven't seen those things or you haven't been there, then go on ahead. It's a free world. You can think whatever the heck you want to think.
I wouldn't say
But
that people are
it's
loony.
not logical to conclude that a thing didn't happen or could not happen because you didn't experience that thing personally. So
Did I say that?
no, but that's your attitude, though, sir.
Really?
Yes, it is.
What else about
You
it?
and
What
Brenda-
else?
He knows your attitude.
You and Brenda, you
That's-
both have the same type of attitude, especially Brenda, because we've had discussions about this in the past, Brenda and I. And again, we hear the constant same rhetoric coming from, well, I haven't seen these things, so therefore, I don't know. Look, if you're saying that you can't believe it, fine. Nobody's going to argue with you on that because that's your personal perspective.
Did I say
You're
I
talking about
couldn't
your
believe it?
personal experience and personal observation or lack
I
thereof.
didn't even say I couldn't believe it.
You can't use that as a means to say that these things don't happen.
You're just not even listening to the things I'm saying. I didn't say I couldn't believe it. I also didn't say that I thought these people were loony.
I didn't say that you said that, did I?
Yeah, you in fact said that.
No, I did not. I'm saying
Actually, that's
you cannot have
directly
this
that's a
attitude.
direct quote of what you just said.
You cannot
Vekl.
have the attitude. You cannot have the no. What I'm saying to you is that you cannot
Anybody can
have
just
this.
rewind the video and
Yeah,
hear
go
him
ahead,
say
please
it.
do. What I'm saying to you is that you cannot have this attitude as if you think that because you haven't experienced these things, therefore the thousands and hundreds of other people who tell you that they've experienced these things personally are crazy. I didn't
And
say
I
that you
didn't
said
say
that
that.
they're crazy. I didn't say that you said that
Can I
they're
say
crazy.
something, Vekl?
Hold on. Let me just wrap it up. All I'm saying, I did not say that you said that those people are crazy. I'm saying your attitude towards those people or towards these things, not having seen those things, you make it seem like that's what you're trying to portray to the audience. That okay,
I'm sorry if I betray this. What I'm trying to say is that I think when I started, I was going to say something as how YouTube, I perceive YouTube and what's going on YouTube, etc., from my point of view as a European 72-year-old Englishman. But what I think people do is they back themselves into a corner, they believe, and we're all guilty of it. We don't listen to what other people say, and we think we know people's intentions, and that is the last thing we know. But all I hear on YouTube a lot of the time, oh, he lied, he intended to do this, or she intended to do that. That was her intention. There's no, what's the word I'm looking for? Humanity in conversations. That's my biggest objection to a lot of what's going on in YouTube, is there's no grace.
I agree, but it's my thing is that it maybe it's just a personal pet peeve of mine. I constantly see these situations where we have non-believers speaking this very authoritative and positive fashion, as if these testimonies that Christians have made, and not just Christians, it could be other forms of theists too as well. But they hear these testimonies from people who, whether they're religious or even paranormal, we can talk about that too. But because they have this attitude as if the world is supposed to surround them or their mode of thinking, and they seem to want to push forward this belief that, okay, because I haven't seen these things, or because I wasn't there, or whatever, therefore it's very hard for me to believe. Okay, it's hard for you to believe, that's fine, but it seems to be a very aggressive on their part to push their opinion or push their subjective position upon the listeners, as almost as if they're trying to dictatorially force it upon people that my position is correct. You know what I mean? We just had a gentleman in here talking about his personal experience with miracles and stuff like that. And on the other side, we've heard people say, well, I need to see document. Okay, you need to see documentation. Okay, that's fine. But you can't just automatically discredit it, especially if you haven't been there. And that seems to be the attitude that we encounter a lot with a lot of atheists here on YouTube and online.
That's
let me just say something really quickly, because I two things I want to say in the super chat. So we do want to try, because Brian Stevens did a super chat, thank you, and also John did another super chat. And I just want to point out that Brian Stevens was saying about straw manning. Vekl, he thinks you were straw manning, and so that's something we'd try to not to do, is when you misrepresent somebody else's position. But I think Vekl's also just speaking more generally. I don't think he was necessarily saying with Brenda. I think maybe you're just saying you've met people who have this position that he was doing. And also John says, YouTube Polish astronaut admits flat earth.
Yeah. Can I say something?
If we're still doing, are we still doing recommendations? I'd like to throw a recommendation in.
Yes.
This is a modern one, and actually not a book, but a YouTube series. But John Vervaeke is a U of T professor.
Totally.
A YouTube series called Awakening from the Meaning Crisis.
Awesome.
And he presents sort of a secular approach to meaning. And I think it's essential viewing for theists and non-theists alike. There's 50 videos, but it's well worth it. And actually, writer John Buck and I and some others in this Beverly community have been doing a weekly series on YouTube where we've been going.
I totally agree. It's actually a perfect meeting ground too for theists and atheists. Both of them can meet in the middle on his videos, because he's kind of adopting everything from a secular approach or a scientific approach, but he is actually empathetic or sympathetic to the spiritual approach too, right? Pleasure doubt when you say?
Yeah, and definitely, and I'll say, I mean, one of the things his video series has changed in me, I mean, there's a few things, but for example, it's given me a much better appreciation for the role of ritual. I think it's essential watching for anti-theists, because he talks a lot about putting aside the theological issues. Religions are doing things for people in terms of creating meaning, and meaning is also in terms of, call it the agent arena relationship. So how you see yourself in the world, each other in the world, and in all of our different guises. But he talks about the role of ritual as serious play, and that it has a specific role in developing insight and in developing these practices, even things like prayer and similar to meditation, that they have functions aside from their theological basis. So it opens up for an appreciation of different aspects of religions that I think some non-believers don't appreciate when they focus solely on the is it true aspects. And his goal is to sort of, I think, identify. I'm sort of 3/4 of the way through the series. I'm not quite caught up. He's finished his 50, but his idea is to develop sort of the religion that's not a religion, sort of to take the meaning generating, he calls them psychotechnologies, sort of these techniques that various religions and science has developed to help this meaning crisis that's affected religious people and non-religious people alike. And yeah, I'll dig up the link and put it in the
totally. And actually, Nathan, I was going to recommend it to you. You would get a lot out of it. It's right in the middle ground of, like, particularly for the type of skeptics who are scientific and rational, and that's the lion's share of their objection to theological claims, is that he deals with in the same territory, but like Jordan Peterson, and without the baggage that people associate with Jordan Peterson. I think Jordan Peterson's great, but Jordan Peterson, a bunch of atheists are all like, he's terrible.
Well,
He has no baggage associated with him. He's just finding a middle ground where a scientific, rational-minded person will get 100% out of it, and it helps back up theological claims. By the way, I cite him a lot in my videos. So,
What's his name? Sorry,
John Vervaeke. I put it in the chat, and I'll put it in.
Brian
Okay,
Stevens. Brian
could
Stevens.
you put it as
your
a link?
assignment.
Stephanie?
Yeah, I've added
Yes.
a link in the side chat as well.
Yeah,
Stephanie, I assigned it to Brian Stevens. I assigned it to Brian Stevens.
I want to say something. Actually, I'd like, if all of you guys who are in here, I want to make sure I do get all of the links to your channels or anything else that you have, so I can make sure we bring attention to you. And actually, I would even, if you want, I can also post the links permanently on my channel. So every time I do a video, the link to your channel pops up. So if you're interested in that,
Do
That
it.
would be much
know.
appreciated.
Yes.
Yeah, I'll send you something via email.
Okay, wonderful.
And John Buck.
Appreciate it.
Is John Buck in the audience?
Yes,
He
John
was
Buck,
earlier, yeah.
if you do it on my channel, I couldn't figure out how to do it. You can do it with Stephanie and Beverly, and some of these other guys. I don't know who else's channels.
On the
Go ahead.
other hand, I'm very much an atheist and into the science and rationality, and my life is full of meaning, full of wonder and joy. I don't have the slightest crisis in meaning or purpose in my life at all. I have absolutely no need for any religion at all in order to have those things.
Yeah, I think you'll still find his. I have no doubt that most people will find something in these lectures that are of value. I mean, they're fascinating. Some of them are pretty dense, but he's very lay friendly. And I actually have I have notes that I've posted where I've taken notes on. I have a Google Doc where I've taken notes on most of the episodes. I think there are links in our Beverly, but people can DM me if they want. I can give them a link to my notes that can help. But it's well worth it. I mean, I don't think anyone from whether theist or non-theist will regret taking a look at this series.
I agree.
Thank
I
you.
totally agree.
So
Theist agrees.
let's go around and just sort of everybody wind down and maybe say if you want to have any closing comments or how people can find you or what you didn't get to say but you want to say it now. So you want to go ahead and do that as we kind of wind down here. Who wants to start?
I'll start, I guess. So I'm Pleasure of Doubt. I have a brand new YouTube channel with not a lot of content, but hopefully there'll be much more. I'm a big procrastinator too, so I just got to get my butt in gear. And but I've got a few good. We just mentioned John Buck. I have a few conversations on free will that we have up there that I think are pretty good conversations on free will. My Twitter is at Pleasure of Doubt. The YouTube's at Pleasure of Doubt. One comment I did want to make. I think a few people sort of brought it up. I know a comment Brenda brought up. And I just want to be careful. We have the difference between the test for believing something is different from the test for believing. So the test for believing something does exist is different from the test for believing something doesn't exist. So I can say, I don't have good evidence to believe X, but I also need good evidence to believe X doesn't exist. So withholding belief, so not lacking warrant to belief, is the test for not X. But just because we can say there's insufficient evidence to believe in a God, but that doesn't mean automatically there's evidence that no God exists. We need to have both ways, I think, to have our position justified. I'll describe myself either as a weak atheist or an agnostic, because I don't think there's sufficient evidence that God exists, but I also don't think there's sufficient reliable evidence that God doesn't exist. And that's a much tougher. That's a much tougher test, because proving things don't exist that can be.
Yeah. Well, the way you prove
really
that is
difficult.
through logical contradiction, and that's fairly simple to do, particularly when you get an actual definition.
Well, I think you're right in terms of some definitions.
Yeah.
So, like some versions of deities are, you could point out certain contradictions, but just the concept of deity and just the fact of I think it's really difficult to do, for example, of a deist type God, a God that doesn't purport, doesn't have a book, doesn't have, but just created the world and stepped out. I mean, that's really hard to say there's sufficient evidence that doesn't exist. That doesn't mean we should believe it, but it's hard to say. It's hard. I think it's just as hard to say there's evidence that it doesn't exist.
Okay, that's fair enough. So who else would like to kind of wind it down, say some final comments?
I'll go next. Or I'm sorry, go ahead. Go.
No, you started.
Okay. So yeah, this was a lot of fun. Thanks, SJ, and I'd love to do it again.
Great.
I would say that if anybody wants to check out the podcast, or just the Canadian Atheist, you can find it on any kind of podcatcher, as I said earlier. Send me a friend request on Facebook. It's Michael, Micheal Stuart, because my parents hated me, so they spelt it weird. And I would say if you want to hear some, we've had some interesting conversations with Christians as well on the podcast. I should also say that I don't do this by myself. It's with a very good friend of mine, Dean. We do the podcast together. But we've had Kent Hovind and Blake Genta and Saitan Brugenkate. So if you want to hear some good Christian convos, those are good too. Any one of the conversations we've had with a Christian is totally safe for kids' ears. Everything else, lock the kids up, because I have a foul mouth.
Blake is actually friends with Dillahunty.
Yeah, so you enjoy being demonetized, right?
Well, no. So I don't monetize anything that I do in any way, shape, or form. No. But it's actually decent. Thanks for the reminder. Put it out there. I don't monetize anything that I do with the podcast or anything else. I tell people to go support the people who are kind enough to have to look at my ugly mug. So send the money that way.
Right, should I?
Sure.
I've thoroughly enjoyed the conversation. I think it got a little bit off the rails at times, but that's because we don't know each other. And I think I prefer the company of people who disagree with me. I'm a great believer in Groucho. I think it was Groucho Marx who said, "I don't want to join a club that wants me to join it."
Yeah, that was Groucho.
Yeah, it's and there's nothing more boring than being surrounded by people who have exactly the same beliefs as you have, and exactly the same things. I'm 72. The day I stop learning about other people is the day I die.
Well, you've got 10 years on me.
And that means that I'm always there. People fascinate me. And I learn when I talk to you all, I've learned a little bit more about myself. You teach me about myself.
What part of England are you from?
Pardon?
Where in England are you from?
I'm in at the moment Hunstanton, which, as I said earlier on, is the only town on the east coast where the sun sets over the sea. If you work that out.
I got a question for you. You're from the UK, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. Why are there so many flat earthers from the UK?
Don't ask me, Brenda.
I'll try. It's because the Earth is flat.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Pretty much. Because they can tell the truth and they know the truth.
And the truth will set you free. So who wants to go next? Well, it's Nathan. You want to go?
Oh, I'll go.
Yeah, Craig, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, I can go. Actually, I don't know what his name is. The gentleman who just spoke.
Oh, is it Michael? Or no, that was Tim.
The person from England who was just talking.
Correct. Yeah, that's Tim.
Tim. My wife's mother is English, so she has relatives in England. So I've been to the West Country a couple times. I like England. But yeah, I was just going to offer. I was kind of wandering back to the apartment when he was talking about. He asked a question about a real human question about the Holocaust. If Adolf Hitler said the salvation prayer right before he died, and then Adolf Hitler. The one thing I was going to say to him is, if the God that we are positing exists, can I do this, or are we just wrapping it up? Can I?
No,
can
that's
I
fine.
address-
If you want to.
Okay, cool. The one thing I was going to say about that, if you're still there, it seems like he's gone. Is he still here?
He's
It
here.
looks like he's still there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
The
he's
one
still
thing
here.
I was if the God that we are positing exists is actually God, then your sense of justice would correspond directly with actual God-breathed justice. So yes, technically, if Hitler did that, but he wouldn't repent, and the Bible says you will look with your eyes and see the punishment that comes on the wicked. And you did in real life with Adolf Hitler. He wound up surrounded on all sides with destruction, and he killed himself. Now, as far as the Jews, if it violates your sense of just complete fairness, then then it isn't really God. The theology doesn't contradict basic human justice. That's what I was going to say. So,
Although there's still the possibility that a deity exists and it's not just. So you can't take that out of the running either, if we're looking at all these
right. But if you're asking because he was asking from a real place of like, I don't understand how this can be true, and I don't understand how this is just or fair. And if we're actually talking about the sovereign creator of heaven and earth, it will be just and it will be fair. That's my only point. So
I think that's let me build on that with Craig, because Craig, did you want to also mention about your YouTube channel?
Yes, I have a YouTube channel, Craig Reed, John Bucks. Sometimes every once in a while will join me in interviews, and probably Pleasure Doubt will be on there pretty soon, maybe Nathan. And come check it out. Nathan, you gonna come? You gonna come say hi at some point?
Yeah. Well, just send me a message, man, whenever. I'm open to.
Okay, cool. Maybe both of them together, and they can go at it. You say, I'm agnostic. No, I'm agnostic.
That's funny. Yeah, no, I listened to a really good video of yours today, so I gave it a like. So it was really good. I think you were talking, actually, you didn't say the words epistemology or ontology, but that's exactly what you were talking about, and I loved it. So
yes, thank you. Yeah, that got a pretty decent response. I think even Pleasure of Doubt commented on that video.
Yeah, I commented. I gave you a few comments on it.
Good. So let's go to Brenda. Brenda, did you want to say any closing comments or ideas?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know the people here involved and stuff like that. So I don't know what to say other than thank you for inviting me in, and maybe there'll be a next time.
Okay, great. Thank you. Do you have a YouTube channel, Brenda?
Yes, I posted the link in this Zoom group chat.
Okay. I'll try to find that.
Yes. Yes, thank you.
Okay,
I
thanks.
can email it to you too.
Yeah, do actually email me back with that, because that'll be even easier for me to find it. So perfect.
I'll do the same.
So let's go to maybe Nathan.
Yeah, sure. So yeah, I've got a YouTube channel, Nathan Ormond, just my name. Same on Twitter and everything. And I guess I'd say I think that it's great having these sorts of chats. I think it's really useful to talk to people with different points of view. And I think it's good for people to try and keep as open a mind as possible and keep questioning things in the pursuit of truth and not become dogmatic.
Yeah, good point. I agree. And Vekl, what do you say?
Yeah, I just want to first thank everybody for being patient with me. Got a little heated there for a second. But somebody made a comment about, Nathan made a comment, about people being open and stuff like that. And I really appreciate that, especially when you're in discussions like this. But maybe that's one of the reasons why I get a little agitated when I hear or I perceive a comment or a notion that kind of in some way, shape, or form forces their belief against the will of others in order to try to get a certain point across. So if I detect that, or if I in some way, shape, or form hear that out of the person who's talking to me, I do get a little agitated, as a lot of people who are familiar with me on YouTube know. But a couple other things I wanted to address too, real quick. I think it was Michael. You made mention about Luke 18, about the rich young ruler and why Jesus responded to him. Why dost thou calling me good and stuff like that. In my opinion, if you're reading the passage, it's basically a rhetorical question if you're reading it in context, because Jesus was basically challenging the ruler to really consider why he referred to Christ as a good teacher. So first of all, only God is good, and goodness only comes from God, as we can see in passages such as James chapter 1. And if you don't believe that goodness comes from God because you don't believe that he exists, that's a whole other discussion here. But you're talking to a Christian, we say that God is the source of goodness, source of love, and so on and so forth. So again, the context in that passage in Luke is Jesus challenging this guy because he's telling Jesus that he's done all things regarding the commandments. He's kept this, he's done that, he's done this. What's preventing him from getting into heaven? Jesus gives him that rhetorical answer, a rhetorical question, saying, go sell your stuff and stuff like that. Or why do you call me good? There's only one that's good, and that's God. So he's basically asserting to people, okay, this guy recognized who he is. He recognized the divinity and sovereignty that this man holds, because first of all, he's got a whole bunch of people. He's doing miracles. He has people worshiping him. He hasn't rebuked any of these people worshiping him, so on and so forth. So I don't want to go into a whole exegetical discussion about Luke 18. We could talk about that another time.
Love to have you on the podcast.
Yeah. I'm sorry, say it again.
I said I'd love to have you on the podcast.
Okay, great. I would love it. I love it. But anyway,
I'd love to talk to you Vekl,
look,
in detail.
Yeah. And we got some trolls in the side chat. Daniel thinks that I'm afraid to talk to him. And Brian, who SJ, you've made one of the mods. I say, listen, you want to talk to me? Come at me, bro. Come at me.
Vekl's ready to go.
Yeah, so because these people got to understand that I'm not afraid, and nobody here is afraid to talk to you. And neither am I afraid to say, you know what, I don't have the answer to that. Let me get back to you on that. Christians need to practice that love. That I'm not saying I'm the most humble person, but we need to start practicing that level of humility.
Definitely.
No, Kanye West is the most humble person, right?
Right. Yeah, he's the greatest rapper that God has sent on the earth. Right.
That's exactly what he said. That's exactly. That's hilarious.
Anyway, I like embracing different ideas too, and that's why I'm involved in this environment as well. So so I just thank everybody for coming out, for giving me a chance to speak, and SJ, thank you as usual. And,
well, thank you.
Yeah,
I want to say many thanks to all of you for coming in here. I really appreciate it. If you ever want to come again, I'm going to try to make these things kind of frequent. I actually purposely call it free for all. I think it's just opening it up to people. And the idea is a secret little hidden pun means the truth will set you free. So, so the idea is free for all. So that
slap. We smuggled Jesus even into the title.
I smuggled him in.
Yeah.
So I'm going to have more free for alls. I've just got to figure out the timing, because I want to try to run regular shows at least once a week. And I've been going quite frequently now because I'm on break, but I'm going to try to figure out a timing. And if any of you guys want to come on, just, how to get a hold of me and we can go from there. So
yeah, I'd say just SJ, as far as my position, because I'm 5 hours ahead of you, I think.
Yes.
5-6 hours ahead of you. I'm very flexible on time because I have no time dependent commitments. But if you want to do it later, which means I have to have a nap beforehand, I need some notice. If you see what I mean.
That sounds good.
And I'm also, to let people know, I think I'm talking to Converse Contender on Wednesday.
Yes. Yeah, he's a
yes. I've talked to him before.
Yeah,
he's great.
I find him interesting. I think he's a breath of fresh air, as far as I'm concerned, in some ways.
Yeah, he's a friend of the channel.
Yeah, and I would say, Vekl, my aim is I don't want to disillusion anybody of their beliefs. I don't have that right. All I want to do is to find out why people believe what they do. What makes you tick, Vekl? And you can find out what makes me tick. Thank you.
Yeah, that's fair.
All good
Great.
stuff.
Yeah, well, thank you. Okay, well, everybody, thank you for coming in. I'm going to go ahead and, oh, Brother John just said something here. Truth will set you free, but it might make you mad at first, something like that. All right, well, thank you guys. I'm going to go ahead and end the stream.
Right.
Bye, everybody.
Cool. Bye all.